misfits,
Welcome
one
aboard.
and all. That's right, to tonight's Midnight Ranting. Is Christianity rational? Spoiler alert.
No.
So won't you join, though we welcome views that differ from our own. In fact, won't you join James W. and myself, Amy Newman, as we have some fun putting Jesus into the hot seat? Oh my. That's right. What is up, everyone on the
How's everybody
interwebs? In fact, please don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe. Because then you gain access to that bell icon, which when set to all will send you reminders to see our premieres, like the one that I do believe is going to be shown on Monday, our first standalone upload of one of our Call Me Skeptical calls, and I think that's going to become a new tradition.
Gotta play the hits.
That's right, baby. Gotta play those hits. Have you guys ever heard of the 10 Commandments? Yes, Moses. We heard it was like 18 chapters ago. But yes, and join our live streams. What is up?
Remember that Egypt place I got you guys out of? Don't forget about that.
Put your butt right back in. Thanks,
well,
God.
Fine, God.
Thanks,
put us
God.
back in Egypt if you're going to keep throwing that
I know,
in
right?
our face every 5 minutes.
I just asked you where you wanted to eat for dinner, but fine. But thank you. And also, we're a skeptic channel, admittedly so, including the two schmucks that you see hosting before you. However,
Definitely.
after our house cleaning, and our opening statements, we will be opening up the open mic where you can tell us what is on your mind. Atheist to theist, liberal and conservative, come as you are. Just out of my sheets. Listen, there's many places, but now I gotta do laundry. Anyway.
She spends all day doing laundry.
All day. It's really a passion. But this housekeeping is in fact sponsored by our Patreons over at patreon.com/Amy Newman, where you can find many awesome memes, including awesome Patreons like us from the network group and roundtable, and really we're just trying to connect atheists because #Tangang, we don't schism, we don't have to have Protestantism versus Catholicism, Islam versus Christianity. We can just say, come one, come all, if you're team science. Woohoo! Connecting non-believers, sending love to us. At youtube.com/Atheist Network Group. Woohoo! And also, Ian Davenport, who helps us understand that, wow, as amazing and fantastic as our bodies are, they don't look like they were poofed into existence for us. It kind of looks like nature clawed its way, kicking and screaming and surviving just so it could get there, just so it could have a long neck like James's favorite giraffe in the boat.
In the boat.
Boatgate. We had Applegate, there's Boatgate. So many bad things happen in the Bible because humans seem to frig.
So the ark's floating around out there. There's dead babies floating all around it.
A lot of dead
babies. They say, "What are you gonna do?"
Mm.
He's God. If he wants to drown a bunch of babies, he's gonna drown a bunch of
babies.
You don't like it? You want to talk to the complaint department?
That's true. There is a complaint department. That is true. Oh man. Funny enough, the complaint department is also how God handles babies. No.
God.
Hashtag loving God. But yes, thank you, Ian Davenport. And of course, when we hear these claims, and I think I saw Skylar out there in chat sending love to Skylar. When we hear, a God who drowns once again evil babies. It makes a grumpy old cuss, and all of us just kind of go, bleep, 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 bleep. No, really, evil babies.
They're probably reminiscing about, like, remember when we went into Egypt and killed all those firstborn? Wasn't that a blast? They didn't have blood on the door, so we killed them.
It's true.
Great times, great times. Even the animals.
That's true, even the animals. Except if they're in the water. If they're in the water, they seem to get out of it somehow. But also sending love to Diana Smith.
Thanks, Diana.
3 princesses in one. Because the Bible, of course, they just like to make the PSA that all genders are equal, but some of them are more equal than others. Sending love, Diana. But that's okay. We eventually got the right to vote. And sending love to Pat Lurger. Our resident archaeologist. He is so amazing. Done fantastic episodes of Talk Skeptic to me. Also, I see many more in the works from Pat and all of our fantastic supporters out there. Come share your expertise or experience with the community, like how sacredness came to be, how a spooky episode on Halloween came to be in the modern form in the historical perspective, and also is absence of evidence of absence, and we end up getting a giant maybe because
UDEF likes to address.
Yeah, it just turns out that and I love this, they really use this with the whole tomb thing. That was one of the points that got brought up today was, the tomb was missing. What are you going to do with that, skeptics? Not use that as evidence. I don't know how that is. If the body is missing, that's not evidence they came back from the dead. I guess that could be one of the options, but almost any naturalistic cause is instantly more probable. Someone getting him up and marinate, and using him as a marionette puppet. Okay? Still within the naturalistic realm. As terrible as you could say after, they killed him. That's really...
Like Weekend at Bernie's.
I feel like Norm in the back of my head. They already did the worst thing they could have done, which was kill him. So at that point, you're just kind of rubbing it in people's...
Imagine the disciples going around like Jesus' body, like Weekend at Bernie's.
Exactly. But how that is way more probable, right? Than the body literally coming back to life and then ascending to heaven, which I also love. It's not like the tomb's empty and then the dude started walking around and having conversations. How are you going to deal with that,
the tomb?
atheist?
How do we know that was the tomb?
No. He was dead, and then as far as reports go, naturalistically, he stayed dead.
I don't think he ever existed, but...
Well, I know.
There you go.
I think I already have it because I've been writing down, getting emojis ready for our fantastic channel memberships I'll be coming. But I think one of yours is going to be hashtag is a myth. Do. For me and
us, yeah.
That's right, baby. And I'm halfway in between, as all things.
As usual.
Well, because I mean, even if he existed,
Right,
so do
right,
a lot
right.
of people.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Sure.
get you anywhere. Muhammad existed,
all.
but I could tell you he wasn't a prophet. So, so whether he is more like Moses or more like Muhammad, that's why my hashtag continues to be prophets do not exist. Can't talk to a god. If you can, tell us. In fact, you can actually. Let me put an asterisk on that statement. You can talk to God. If God talks back to you, tell us. Sending love and also sending love to Dale Pastel, reminding us we're just looking for skeptical empirical evidence. We can't help ourselves because, well, it's the only thing that actually matters. And it's funny, we often ask the question, what would change their people's minds? Sometimes they say, you have to take my brain out and just, mush it to get me to believe that Jesus wasn't my Lord and Savior. I think asking for testable, if God can't pass a double-blind study, I feel like, is that even maximally powerful? Because that's the one of the PR words, maximally powerful.
Well, I think most of us agree God doesn't talk to anybody audibly anymore. I just don't think he ever did. True. You're saying long ago and far away he did, but for some reason he just decided to stop talking to people. Why? Oh, well, now we have divine hiddenness. But don't worry, thousands of years ago, before we would ever have any documented evidence of it, other than the Bible, trust us, he really, really did talk to people back then.
Exactly.
He doesn't do it now, but trust us, he really did a long time ago.
Wait, James, what if I'm asking you to trust 500 people? Does that would 500 people lie to you?
Yeah, I mean, hey, what are you going to do?
And the answer I would say to that is that deals with intent. Lie is really such a poisoning of the question, because it could be, were 500 people, could they have been wrong? And I think the clear answer is yes, easily.
We have one account, though, saying 500. We don't have 500 separately
That's also true.
Verified accounts. I mean, I could say 1,000 people saw me fly to the moon, but does that mean there's 1,000 people attesting to that, or just my claim of that?
I would almost say that amount of people, it had to have been someone thinking about it and being like, well, look, if I said 5 people, no one's going to believe me. But if I say like 5 million people, damn, they're not going to believe me either. So what's like a bunch of people that can really sound, 500 sounds like a really large focus group. They took a bunch of studies. So 500 people, oh my God.
Like a small convention, yeah.
But yeah, still one claim. But thank you so much, Dale Pastel.
Thanks,
we
Dale.
are talking about Christianity tonight. We are, like I said, about to open up into...
As we are known to do.
I know. Actually, I think I'm going to keep certain things I need to keep around with me because the claims get so inquisitive. And sending love to Dave Gar, reminding us that, well, of course, the Bible, the Quran, they appear to be flat earth text.
Hey, Dave Gar, he's out there in chat.
What is up, Dave Gar? I think I saw Dale too. What is up, Dale and Dave Gar? Everybody seeing lots of love in the chat, sending that love right back. We'll be reading everyone's comments up on there, especially if you tag us,
Beamsy
James W. and myself, at Amy Newman. But also sending love to Dave Gar, and also sending love to Scott Duke, the lead hyena of the pack. This was another point that Skylar brought up, is that they just consistently look down on other animals. Not all of them.
Yeah.
Some of them, will tell you dogs are our best friend. You can hear some Muslims say the cats are amazing, but, you know, I haven't found many who come in to defend how fantastic other animals are. It's generally, look. They're really cool, but, James, I don't know if you know this, but did you know we went to the moon?
I don't know. Alex Stein doesn't seem to think we did.
Stein prime time. That's great. You know what's funny? It's still surreal that I've met Alex Stein. Because of that convention.
Oh, yeah, you did, yeah.
Wow. It was an interesting time. Surreal. And you know what I'll say? And I think Rachel said the same thing. That no matter how opposing a view that someone was, they were all very sweet in real life. We had good conversations. Yeah. She drove many of them. She drew, who the hell? What was his name? It's sad that I know him as the Christian psychopath, but that's his shtick. David Wood, who, once again, he was a sweetheart in real life. He was nice and cordial, and all of these people were respectable. I think Alex Stein did it to his merit, had a trolling event with his friend. There was a guy there who had like giant amount of subscribers, and he came in character. So that was also interesting.
Alex Stein was in character? Or
no, well, whether Alex Stein is in character, I have the same question as Alex Jones. But no, there was someone else. There was a guy. I see. Ooh, see, it's such a absentee love. He's like drove me crazy. No. I think it really was sending love to DebateCon. There was a lot of fantastic debates on there. Had a panel. Can't wait to the next one, but go check out all those, including, and I actually just have to say, we are having a modern day debate inspired after party, so go check out over there. I say there's so many Jameses in my life. Go send love to the other James over there. And all right, we are almost gonna be moving. Sending love to Rachel. Or no, wait. Well, yes, sending love to Rachel, but sending love to Rachel, who is our skeptic Bible study, reminding us that the Bible gets a little bit, well, they don't really like interfaith religions. Let's just say those type of relationships they're not fans of. They
well, you know, like the common problem in the Bible, people are just walking down the street and someone comes to you up like, hey, psst, let's go worship other gods. He won't know. I don't know. God might get mad about that.
Yes, and apparently God isn't everywhere, because apparently we can. God
we'll go worship other gods. Just this one.
We won't worship an idol or do anything crazy like that. No. Even like 10 minutes after we saw God physically talking to us, which we never get now. Apparently the phone lines don't work. They need to upgrade their family talk plan.
Oh yeah.
But sending love to Regis and sending love, like I was saying, to the lovely, the fabulous, and fantastic Rachel, reminding us that the Bible would never support the slaves of the nations around you. They would. It's not like the transatlantic slave trade, James. That would be terrible and evil and factually accurate.
Well, as we heard tonight, even though God told his people they could buy slaves and the rules and how you could beat your slave, he didn't endorse slavery, as we were told. Since they were going to do it anyway, he just made up a few rules to make it not as bad as it could have been. But he didn't tell them to do it, right? See, you got to be very nuanced about this.
Right. James, you have to understand the con context. Do you understand the context? In fact, if you would just focus on the con, you would start to see clearly. You'll get right to the text. But yes, sending love, Rachel, and sending love to Senator Cato, reminding us about the separation of church and state. Because it's kind of the theme of this channel, just as important as really anything we've been talking about, is the fact that we have a government that doesn't impede on religious or non-religious views. So sending love, Senator Cato, and sending last, but certainly not least. And I have hers in process, but I'm having, this is the stand-in until then, which is just the lovely Christopher Hitchens quote, "In love of Jenna," which is take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way. Christopher Hitchens, reminding all of the skeptics out there to think for themselves, and sending love to Jenna and the Atheist Network group one last time for basically throwing a party for us and getting us past this 1K. Jenna. Holy mom, see and sending so much love. She's produces
out there, but she's
so much fantastic content. You guys should be out there at youtube.com/the Atheist Network group.
They already are.
And hey,
everybody is subscribed to them.
You know, James, some would even say that they and all of us in Team Science do it #better.
You could say that, yeah.
With that, we are sending so much love to all of our Patreons.
That's all wrong,
you are who wrong. Make this even possible. And to our, I would say, to our subscribers, our viewers, the chat, and of course, lovely people like you out in the interwebs. But we're about to be doing our opening statements and then moving into the open mic, which means I am going to be actually sending the open mic link into chat as we queue up
Fire away.
Our statements. So the only thing we ask is that we will keep ourselves silent, but while we move into the open discussion, is that you keep your mic silent when you're not talking so we can have some clean sound bites. Other than that, we really do not care. And so the link is going into the chat.
We're not big on insults and talking over each other. We might have to mute some people. But
and doesn't matter, atheist or theist, we just care that our viewers can hear you. That is the most important part. And all right, before we do that, though, before we open up the floodgates, as James said.
For the crazies?
Yeah. What? How dare you? Okay, but no, we love all of our theist brothers and sisters. We really do. The people that disagree with us, we want you to come on and tell us why. Because if your views stand, then maybe we should be thinking like you, or at least that way on a particular subject. So I've had a lot of wisdom from, people that have differing views, especially if they too are skeptics. I have met, non-atheistic skeptics out there. I think we had one debating today. So yeah, sending love out there. And all right, before we do that, sponsored by Sugar Salt Water. All right. Is Christianity rational? No. And by rational, I mean something corresponding to reason or logic. That's because for Christianity to be true, many of the known laws of physics have to be false. We'll start with the specific religion's hallmark claims that a rabbi can, first of all, speak to a God, that he's not only the son of a God, but God himself. Oh, heavenly daddy. Father. That's only the end of a 3-act show, with supposedly more to come. That's what he or she said. Apparently, this man could walk on water, turn some water into wine, and heal the sick. Plus, for an extra $20, he does birthday parties. Is any of this starting to sound rational to you? And from whom exactly do all of these whimsical claims come from? Well, most of the authors of these texts were anonymous, each with their own conflicting narratives. And a giant portion, 15 feet, of the New Testament comes from Better Call Saul. Not the handsome lawyer, but the dude who got a name change after learning about his spiritual boyfriend. That's right. Apparently, Jesus, well, Ghost Jesus, met Paul 50 years after said crucifixion, which is kind of long and a random amount of time. Tell you what, if you see a spirit from the 1970s or 80s tell you that they are your Lord and Savior, thank your drug dealer. Or call Ghostbusters. My guess would be, don't create a text in which you decide to worship him, because of the blood sacrifice that he made in atonement for our sins. Because that's what cults do. Human sacrifice. Speaking of which, sinning isn't a real concept. You can't offend a god because a god doesn't exist. And if a god did exist and you could offend them, does that mean they could create a Netflix profile helping them find non-offensive comedies? Maybe something with Paul Rudd. He's so swell. Anyway, as I stated before, the C word doesn't roll off of people's tongues easily. You know, cult. Though, however nice he or a group seems, if a strange gentleman tells you to sell all your belongings, leave your family, and to follow him, I wouldn't get in the van. No matter how hot he is. Even blonde-haired, blue-eyed, 6'4", tall and ripped Jesus. So when someone asks me, is Christianity rational? To me, it's an easy answer. No.
Nope.
If you're into ASMR, because there is no good evidence for the extraordinary claims that the religion makes. This goes for the litany of religious views that tie themselves to both mono and polytheistic anthropomorphic gods. When it comes to a deity caring about the personal decisions that go on in my life, I'm going to need better evidence than a book said a thing. Thank you. And all right, before we break into the open mic,
got Ralph triggered out there. He thinks you're ready.
Oh my!
He thinks you're ready to. You're just a little scared, Ralph thinks.
A little. Oh my!
To accept
hey,
Jesus. Have
and
Jesus
once again,
inside of you.
Oh my! Can I every Tuesday? Can we book it? No. I will send love to anyone out there. Continue to comment in the chat. Don't feel forced to come on and say your mind. We love the back and forth. You know, if you're in sweatpants and eating potato chips, we're here for you. However, if you do disagree with us or agree with us and want to say your mind about the debate or the topic, come one, come all. I'll even clean my sheets afterwards. But, all right, before we open up the open mic.
Backstage, so.
That's right, baby. James W., what do you think? Hey. We've been putting Jesus in the mercy seat tonight. We saw a debate between Skylar, Dr. Josh, and then Cliff and Stuart. And so, what are your thoughts about either?
Well, I thought it was a pretty good debate. I think Dr. Josh and Skylar did very well for themselves. I think they did very good. I like how Skylar really started off and just looking at the basics, like looking at what the Bible claims, even in just the first few chapters. And as you turn the pages, you get literally absurdity after absurdity jumping out at you. You get things that make no sense to us today, but you know who they did make sense to? Ancient man. They made sense to ancient man because that's who wrote it. So things like animal sacrifice and blood rituals and silly arbitrary rules kind of made sense to them. They don't make sense to us today, but the problem with religion is we're told that actually those people, they had it all right. The modern scientists, everybody today, we've got it all wrong. What we actually need to do is go back to like 1500 BC, and they had morality right. They had history, geography. They had everything right back then, and we've been degrading since then. And we lost Brett. But Christianity, it does make a lot of really absurd claims, and I realized that Stuart and his father, they have, in a lot of ways, a more nuanced version of Christianity. They have a more philosophical, more liberal version than a lot of people have, but be that as it may, it's still full of absurdities. It might not be the most absurd version of Christianity out there, but it's still got plenty of absurdity riddled all the way through. And it's just not a reasonable, rational position. It just makes so many claims that cannot be verified. And I think that's what they hang their hat on. They hang their hat on the idea that, well, you can't falsify it. And that's true. If you want, you can create an unlimited number of things that cannot be falsified. That does not mean they're likely to be true. That does not mean it's reasonable to hold a belief in it just because you constructed it so that it can't be falsified. And that's why Amy asked her question. She asked them, what would it take to change your mind on Christianity to think that it was not rational? And they said, you could disprove the resurrection, which is a cop-out because they are telling you to do something that is not falsifiable. The resurrection is not falsifiable because, barring having a time machine, physically being able to go back and see that it didn't happen, you can't prove it one way or the other. No, Amy's in the back. But yeah, there's just no way to prove it.
Sometimes I have to work in hell.
Yeah, it does not make it rational to believe. And hey, but let's get the other people in and see what everybody has to say.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so very much, James.
I think we talked too long for Brett.
Well, and I do want to send another shout out. We are really looking for people who disagree with our own the most. And so we tend to give a little more or lean in the priority of theists, especially those who disagree with us. So, Brett, sending love out there. We would love to talk. We would love to talk with all creationists, young and old. And all right, with that, I think we are going to move into the open mic. So I'm going to put the link right back up there and onto screen if you would like to join us. I also see out there in the live chat that we could do a science experiment. This is what I like. I like about empirical science. See, because Boneless says if he doesn't say, and hey, you can call me Daddy, my name out loud, it's Boneless Wing. No, we are live. We even said frigate. We'll do it live. So send in love out there. Feel free to come on. I see the West Rocks out there, and Regos.
We already came. Thanks, Regos.
Oh my! But please join us on StreamYard. That's who we're really looking, is for people who disagree with us on Christianity. Because, man, oh man, it's so funny. I love looking at apologist channels and Dawa channels when they attack each other, because they always will have kinology battles. They will always fight about, what does God mean? And in this passage, what does God mean? But when it comes to atheists, they switch their tune. And that's really what we want. We want you to put on the big boy pants and, give us some empirical evidence. But all right, let's switch it on.
Can you do that?
Can you do that? I don't know. And I also have notes. So when we go into the open discussion, we will talk about the debate and just the subject in general. What is up, Change Ways? In fact, we got to say I'm behind on comments saying hi to everybody, but we are officially moving into the open mic. We are Midnight Ranting on Is Christianity Rational? Dun, dun, dun. What is up, Beamsy? I hope you're doing well. We are ranting right after midnight on Is Christianity Rational? Sending love to this MDD-inspired after show, as well as just the topic in general. What are your thoughts?
Oh, if you've probably been looking, C Science and me have been having an interesting discussion. the aspect of the
Vaguely,
gravitational
yeah.
singularity has been abandoned because of the idea that to have a gravitational singularity, you need mass. At the state of the universe at that time, it was complete energy, and energy doesn't have mass. That's why the idea of the cosmic singularity hypothesis was abandoned about 20 years ago. Sorry, I was answering his question in chat.
No, you're good. But then, what do you think? Is Christianity rational?
It has shown no aspect of rationality because it doesn't actually coincide with any aspects of either the four fundamental forces or the four basal assumptions. No, mass is not energy. Energy and matter are interchangeable.
I think that's what he meant.
But woohoo! And hey, if Leo can come on if he wants. What is up, Leophilius? What is up, Senator Cato?
How you
What
doing,
is up,
Leo?
Free Science Film Labs and
That's Senator
Dessel?
out
But
there.
is there anything else before we keep on moving down and to get into open conversation that you wanted to say on Christianity?
I've pretty much said everything because of the fact that it doesn't follow the aspects that I've put forwards.
All right. Thank you so very much, Beamsy. It's lovely to have you on. And all right, we're moving right down, then going into open discussion. Eloy, what is up? We are
Hello.
Midnight Ranting on Is Christianity Rational? Putting Jesus in the hot seat as we talk about the debate as well as just the subject itself. How are you tonight? What are your thoughts?
I'm well. Thank you for having me. My thoughts are that I disagree with you guys. I disagree with you guys in
Woo-hoo.
part. Well, in part, right? I disagree with you guys on Christianity, but I agree with you guys on the side of religion, freedom to not practice or practice according to, the rights that we have. No religion and government mix. I agree with that. However, with that said, we have
I
my
like
just
that so
some
far.
thoughts. We have over 7 billion people on this planet, and each individual are thinking variations on a theme. Perhaps a whole bunch of them are thinking similar things that can cross pollinate, others not so much as. And then we have these historical, iconic, we could say, institutions, we could say, and they've gone on for millennia, some not so much, others yes. And then you have people living in the world today and throughout time that partake in certain philosophies, ideologies, religions, and scientific exploration as well from way back. And you have all these things intermixing and cross-pollinating, and the world is not just as simple as cut and dry depending on what you're looking at. So my point is that Christianity is fragmented into many different people's minds as they see it and read it and study it. Likewise, science, no one agree. A bunch of people agree on certain key things, and then there's qualms among scientists on various subjects. On this topic of Christianity, likewise, amongst Christians, there's variations on the theme galore, and with other religions as well. So my thing is, as a lifestyle, it exists. And we know it exists because there's Christians, just like there's Muslims, just like there's all sorts of folks out there and atheists. And here's the thing, I can't stop you from thinking what you're going to think and saying what you're going to say. And frankly, I don't want to. And likewise, there's people. I'll switch to this last point. Love. You can't bottle it. When people fall in love, whatever that case might be, they can't quite quantify it. You could study it, but there's a certain Freudian side to things that are still in the ether floating, if you can use that to be creative. The religion aspect, if you take a scientist and looks at it scientifically, there's things that are that you can study, and there are a lot of things that evidence archaeological. You could look at that and then you can deny it and you can argue it. But then there's the things of the heart. You can deny it, but there's people that believe it. And now the rational and irrational, they can hang their hats on one thing or the other, and you can argue the point on one way in one direction or another, but it's too complicated is what I'm getting at. So at the end of the day, unfortunately, the argument is based on what I'm saying, what you're saying, and then a bunch of different arguments that people put out. And I can't disqualify anything that you say in terms of, well, how about this? How about that? People could have that argument, those arguments. But on the other side, you also have to contend with archaeology, linguistics, and then the heart. And the heart, you cannot bottle. You can, scientifically speaking, you put it in a flask.
Have you ever tried a milkshake? I'm just kidding. Continue.
Yes.
Send
No,
love.
it's fine. The point is, long story short, when you see debates and folks arguing a point, and it doesn't matter if it's the flat earth thing, it don't matter if whatever the case it is, and I watch them and I enjoy watching them, and I think you moderate very well on that.
Thank you.
However, I have my issues on this topic and I just explained it. So at the end of the day, my thing is, I believe, however, I can't prove to you anything because it's a matter of religion or of spirituality or of the mystic or of, you can't bottle it. You can't bottle it. So my solution is that I'm just going to have to let you do what you do. And I'm going to go ahead and do what I do. And Christianity is going to keep going and multiplying. And so at the end of the day, what are we going to do? We can't do anything. So that's just the point that I want to make, that people like the battle. They like the battle, the crescendo, death and resurrection cycle. Human beings do it whether they believe or not. There's a cycle. And there's studies out there.
And if I can interrupt you,
Yeah.
I think it's the only thing that I take that's useful from it is mythic structure, in that is how generally stories are aligned. You have a lot of the same things happening, but it's just my final question, and I will actually go into a lot of it in the open discussion because we have another theist actually just after you. But are you a Christian, or are you saying, because I don't think you are, what you're saying is that there's some truth in some of what they're saying, even though I myself may have a more nuanced or maybe a little bit more pantheist or deistic, or does that make sense? Well, I guess my final thing
Are you a
is,
Christian?
yeah, are you a Christian?
What is my religious status is what you're asking. So So my belief is in Christianity. Am I a Christian?
You are?
I'm a Christian. Yeah, I believe in Christianity. However, the nuance within that is that I personally, within that with the 7 billion plus people I mentioned that have variations on the theme, I have my variations and I have my standards may not be well high up there at the level of piety or anything to that effect. I don't think in terms of that. Nor do I think that I'm better than you, because I can't be. And I don't think Christians think that either. But the concept or the perception out there, there's a lot of childhood people. There's also, because there's a lot of books, like people and read books, out there, not you specific. I'm just saying in general. There's childhood traumas, and people have and there's people that are contrarians, and you can be a contrarian on religion just because you're a contrarian, and you have right to do that, and you have good good, and you could have good proof and evidence of doing that on any given. So the whole thing is complicated. But at the end of the day, what I'm getting at is that at the end of the day, and this is not good for debating purposes, but at the end of the day, no debate that I've ever seen has resolution. You may think it has, you meaning the people out there, you may think it has in your mind, but these questions have been going on for millennia. So people talk a lot of junk, but they're not there. So the balance thing is this. The true balance thing is this. You could say, and Christianity is going to cause the end of the world and wars, and look what it's done, and this and that. You can make that argument about a lot of stuff. Look at eugenics.
Way out.
And we potty trained a lot of them.
I'm sorry? No, I'm sorry.
James, you want to go first? And I'll say my comment.
She said we potty. That means we took a lot of the more radical aspects of Christianity and moderated them, kicking and screaming, so they're not so destructive to our society anymore. But be that as it may, I think Christianity is it's withering. It's not really going to. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll have a resurgence and it'll keep going on forever. I doubt it, though. I think at some point people are like, this God's not coming back because he never came to begin with. But yeah, and the thing with like these debates is like, no, we can't definitively prove that the concept of a God is not falsifiable. So you can't affirmatively prove there is no God, because they could just hide their God somewhere else, and they do. So, he used to be in the sky, then he's somewhere else. Now he's in another dimension. So you can never check to see if he's actually there. He's not falsifiable. The question is, do we have any rational reason to think he's there? And if you just arbitrarily want to believe in it because you like it, then, I mean, I'm not going to try to stop you from doing that. And
exactly.
Just like you're not. Yeah. Why would we try to stop you from believing what you want to believe?
Right. That's exactly okay. So that's exactly my point. You believe that, and by the way, that concept of what Christians are, like I mentioned at the beginning, because I mentioned it first, from the viewpoint of an atheist, that we hear on these shows and we hear in general, it's always very sliced in half. But remember, we all live in the same world together, and we all grew up with the same religions and the whole thing. So we're all at one level, brothers and sisters, talking about these big questions and these situations. But it brings out emotions in people. So I just want to say this one last thing. And so, so I disagree with your conclusion, but why I can't so it has to do with the heart, and in my judgment. But my judgment may not be yours, so screw it. Go for whatever you have to go for. But my last bit is this, that with that said, the reason I take the position that I do, generally speaking, is due to the problem of what you call like ego, or what you call like arrogance, right? So I'm always worried concerning any subject, when you're studying a subject, that my bias, which is always going to be there. And by the way, your guys' introduction was soaked, drenched, dripping, like coming out of Splash Mountain in bias. But I'm not faulting you. I didn't like it because I felt that, but I can understand it. But we all have it at the same time. But I try in a serious situation, when you're in front face to face with someone, I try to not, or I try as much as I can, I know it's always there, to not have the push for the arrogance, but I fail miserably most of the time. Long story short, you're gonna have to go ahead and believe what you want to believe, and I'm gonna have to go ahead freely believe whatever I so choose, and that's it. That's it.
And hey, we want you to always be able to have your own views. I think this is an intellectual debate, especially I always say when you're on Team Science, that even becomes even more so. But Eloy, thank you for joining us. Stick around for the open discussion. We just have one more person backstage.
He probably agrees with you.
Yeah, who may, and then we'll see. I always find it funny because a lot of times when you bring in other theists, they oftentimes have different, views on, even if they're in the same religion. And so I will send this link back up in there so that anyone can join us. You will be able to join the open discussion once we move in there. But if you'd like a formal intro, now is the time. So head right on there. We are Midnight Ranting on Is Christianity Rational? And we are first going to bring up sending so much love from Senator Cato for $5, saying, keep up the great work, guys. Woo-hoo! Thank you so very much, Senator. And he is very fantastic. I saw him not only out there earlier, but we've been just talking about the separation of church and state. It's important to him. It's important to us here on the channel. It's important to really atheist or theist. I think even Eloy was saying that, as much as we can have disagreements, he appreciates this separation of church and state that allows us to function. And then, and all right, we have two theists. We gave preference to theists, so we are going to go right in order. I'm gonna half-ease this house of comments because sending so much love. We only have one God, and that is the TOS God. But I will read at least. God bless Avi and her band of merry skeptics. God wills this. And then at the very end, he said, and I also hope you all get cuddles and kisses. Oh my God, that's so nice of House of Comments to send us that. So thank you so very much. He's sending us. And once again, we want to send support to all of our atheist and theist liberal brothers and sisters. So we have a fantastic transition, if I do say so. We have Ralph, Brett Keane, and Leophilius behind stage. That means we're getting two more theists on here until we get into the open discussion, and then the lovely and fantastic Leo. But from that comment, we'll bring him in. Ralph, welcome is up? I hope you do. That's right. Welcome aboard. We are Midnight Ranting on Is Christianity Rational? Hope you're doing well. That's right. Thank you so very much for the support. We really do want to nurture a platform that can have atheist and, of course, theist brothers and sisters speaking. So, as James said, welcome aboard. And what are your thoughts about the debate, the subject? We normally say tacos, but the first two are really the theme of the night.
Well, good morning, well, good evening. Hey, James, and I missed the other guest's name, but good morning on this holiest weekend. I thought we should be sharing the love of the Lord Jesus Christ with all of you, especially you, Amy. And don't know what to say. Yeah, the title says, "Is Christianity rational?" I think it's a fair question, but it's sort of malformed and it doesn't do God justice, because rationality means the ability to reason, right? And reason is just limited. Reason isn't good enough to explore the universe, let alone God, right? So is Christianity rational? No, it's so much more than that, right? It's transcendental. Right? It transcends reason and rationality. So I'd say no, Christianity isn't rational. It's much, much, much better than that. How's that for your answer? Short and sharp.
Well, it's so crazy. It's got to be true, right? Like we heard in the debate, nobody would come up with this stuff if it wasn't true.
Well, this is it, because what is reason anyway, isn't it? Reason is the manipulation and symbols of logic, right? So we know from theoretical computer science that there are only 18 propositional rules of logic, and I can reason about the world. And because we have collapsed all of mathematics into into computer science, i.e. the laws of arithmetic, etc., are in binary now, right? So all of maths is in binary. We can say reason is your ability to manipulate all these symbols that you
But
get
can
by
I ask
sensing the
you?
world.
Can I interrupt, Ralph? And you can tell me this is a straw man or a loaded question or whatever.
Sure.
But if you went to your bank and you asked the teller, you're like, "Hey, I just want to see how much is in my bank account. Just doing a checkup." And their response is, "What does logic and reason really mean, anyways?" Would you not become a little bit scared?
I want to speak to the boss, right? That's the first thing I'd do. I don't know about you. I'd be like, hey, where's my money? Right? But you see, that's like asking, will I use a yardstick to measure something that is not applicable? Because ultimately, it's not what reason can do; it's what reason cannot do. That is its limits, right? So I made the claim: Christianity transcends reason. To transcend is to go beyond the limits, but we know what the limits of logic are, right? We know this from science. We know what can't be reasoned about. We know reason is a type of computation. So if you look at Penrose, articulates very beautifully why consciousness is not a computation. So reason is not what reason can do. Yeah, I can use reason to generate induction, laws of arithmetic. But what are the things reason cannot do? Well, we know they cannot, for example, describe consciousness, and they can't describe classes of problems that are non-computable. So reason is a limited instrument. When you give reason primacy, that's an atheist, dare I say, presupposition, like a pre-op. It's a presup. The reason has
we presup reason and evidence.
It's a total atheist presup, right? You're saying reason is this ultimate card by which I'm going to measure everything and then scorecard it. Where reason, any good mathematician or physicist, computer scientist will tell you reason is.
I just have, and I feel bad. I keep on saying one last question, and then I swear we'll ask them all in the open conversation, and I want to get Brett in. But all hinging on consciousness, or not hinging, I should say, but you asked that what reason cannot do?
Correct. We know the things reason can't do.
You even said that reason is a bad presupposition, or you said it is a presupposition. I guess that is my true question.
It is a presupposition.
Is presupposing logic and evidence such a terrible thing to do?
It's not terrible. What it does, it puts you clearly in the column after the Enlightenment of the age of objectivism, right? You've only got two things, two hands like Batman. One hand is called more physics, more evidence. And we know just the standard model of physics is incomplete. And we know physicists will tell you, for 99% of the history of physics, every model they've generated has never been true. So you've really got evidence on one hand, then you've got reason that we now know from theoretical computer science, my craft, that I can give you algorithms after algorithms which you cannot close inference chains on. Reason is limited. So you're telling me when you ask me the question, is it so bad to give evidence and reason primacy? I'm saying it's not so bad, but it's clearly not good enough. Otherwise, we'd have the explanations. So we need something that transcends it. And if you look at all three axes, because you like this stuff, Amy, if you look at what's the biggest breakthrough, possibly, we know in the limits of computation that a Turing machine cannot construct a copy of itself for very deep technical reasons. So it looks like the universe, physically, matter and computation are linked. So we're waiting for constructor theory, or something at the end of Penrose's life, hopefully with Hammerhoff, to understand, well, we can't compute this thing that we're calling our reason and evidence and consciousness. We know it's somewhere linked in the deep information structure into matter. And you're telling me I'm going to take these two very blunt, incomplete tools called evidence and reason, and I'm going to approach God with them. That's like a cockroach trying to understand quantum chromodynamics. I don't think the roach is going to give me any insights into quantum chromodynamics. Well, there's no wired.
And I do.
Right?
Spending so much.
I'm just shooting some weapons out here, Amy. Right?
I'm sending love. I know. And I do have more questions, especially like I think it's interesting. Can a Turing machine create itself? Because I think a Turing machine is kind of a hypothetical machine. Yeah, but no. Well, I feel bad because I always, when you I never want people to feel like they're, but we love all of our theist
Ralph can
brothers and
take it.
sisters.
Ralph's a tough guy.
That's right. He comes on. He have some
He
fun.
comes from
I wouldn't
Atlanta.
interfere with all my shepherd. You can fire away. Don't worry about
Well,
me.
I will say, if you're not a sheep, you don't need a shepherd. I'm just saying, though, Ralph. We stick around. I honestly, I want to continue to talk with this. We're bringing on more theists. We are, which is great. We're actually having almost a 50-50 blend. We like to have half and half in our coffee. So thank you so very much for joining us. And all right.
Hello, Amy.
Brett Keen, what is up? I hope
Hello,
you
Brett.
are doing well. We are Midnight Ranting on Is Christianity Rational? We took a look at the debate, and we are also just talking about the topic in general. How are you doing, and what are your thoughts?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little tired, but you seem like you had an interesting discussion going on. I figured, why not? Seem like a nice person, Amy.
Well, thank you so very much. I have actually welcome to the not only welcome to the
She's the nicer
discussion.
one.
I've been talking. We play good cop bad cop. Though James is a sweetheart too. I've been wanting to talk with you just because of earlier streams. I've said this before about you theology and just how you got to your position. But is there anything specifically? We're just gonna get, I think, Leo in, who's also another non-believer. But is there anything else you have to say on Is Christianity Rational?
I believe it's more rational and logical than the worldview of atheism or any other position out there.
Okay, more rational. That's interesting. But would you say that it's rational?
Of course. Everything within the universe has rationality and logic. If it didn't, we wouldn't be able to do science.
And okay, so I'll probe a little bit more, and then we'll move into to get Leo in the open discussion. But you say more rational, that everything has rationality. It's how we do science. Is there something specific that made Christianity look the flip switch, something from the proposition being irrational to suddenly it actually being a rational proposition?
Well, when we look at a scientific theory like the Big Bang, if you don't mind, do you believe in the Big Bang? Do you believe it actually happened?
I believe that, yes, I believe in the Big Bang, and I believe in it because that's where I think the overwhelming scientific consensus and data currently lies.
Okay. So the claim of the Big Bang is that matter, time, and space came into existence. If that is the case, then that means there was a time where the laws of nature didn't even exist, yet the universe began. That to me is defined as supernatural. That gives me every reason in the world to believe that there's more than just the nature that we know of in our perception of reality.
So I would see that as kind of like a cosmological argument, kind of like there is some sort of first cause.
Right. You believe there's some sort of prime mover yourself, right? At least, whether conscious or not?
I don't. I would say that the furthest back we could go is the singularity expansion event of the Big Bang. That it may be that time began with the Big Bang and there was nothing before, or that concept isn't even possible. That really is just when time began, and we, although it kind of breaks our brain, we need to accept it. Or there could be something else, like a multiverse or something oscillating, or some way in which there are different methods or different types of space-time that we can't even comprehend yet.
Well, you would agree that scientifically we've only observed that life comes from life, not from some kind of non-life.
Well, not only would I disagree with that, I'd say theist and atheist are both making that claim. Because let's think about it. Do you think that life came from non-life at any point?
I believe that as far as whenever you go back in regression, only something that exists outside of the universe would be able to break the rules because the laws do not exist in the confinement.
But can I freeze that for a second? Didn't God make life out of non-life?
Well, God was already an eternal living entity to do that.
See, but I would still be saying you're taking something. I would say in the Bible, it's specifically clay, and you're turning it into life.
Well, in some translations of the Bible, it says God created us from dust. Do you like Carl Sagan? You like Carl Sagan?
I see where this is going with the stardust. Sure.
There you go. Well, goodness, I don't even have to get into it. You already know what I'm going to say.
But can I tell you, and I agree with you, it's just to bring us to the point that both of us think that we came from non-life. At a certain point, there was non-life, and it got turned or evolved into life. Either way.
Well, I believe that something alive actually made us alive, which we can observe in nature, that living things give existence to living things. That's why there's mothers, fathers, parents, self-replicating cells.
Well, and I can't help but going down this road. It always seems so arbitrary. I know. Well, because I think with creationists, when I ask this, they're like, why are you talking about this? But I think it's a biological point, is just that, do you believe that there is, we're just talking about mothers or fathers, do you believe that there's a specific way that which men came first or women came first? And I'll put all my jokes aside.
Well, I understand that if you read the Bible on the surface, it appears as though the order was man, woman, and then the way the creation worked. But when you're dealing with a God who is all-knowing, all-powerful, it's as if we all came into existence at the same time. He's there during our birth as well as our death.
Amen.
Sure, and I'll make the claim that women came first. I just want to put that out there. And I think that is grounded in biology. It's one of my, and it's hard because if you take the more metaphorical route, then we don't have a lot to argue about. If it's the literal route, then I take more of a claim with it. It's why men have nipples. I have to say it once a podcast, because asexual reproduction was first. It gave birth to women who could eventually have sexual reproduction, and sexual reproduction, the male and female version, became so successful that it just overtook asexual reproduction. Now asexual reproduction only happens in like lizards and some rare instances, but that's my long way of saying it, and I'll let you have the closing statement on it, and we'll get Leo in and have it, is I think that women came first, heyo, and because of that, biologically, it's actually evidence that the Bible story, especially Adam and Eve, is in fact incorrect. What do you think about any of that long?
I've had some people ask me, why does it appear as though women were made last in the creation? And I say maybe God was saving the best for last. Can I ask you a question, though?
Absolutely.
If you don't mind, if we were to take God off the table, just take it completely out of him creating the universe or being involved at all,
Okay.
would any of the non-believers in the room be able to explain how man and woman came into existence in the first place, of male and female?
Yes, I can explain that. So single-celled organisms have what are called mating types. These different mating types, there are often thousands of them. It's how fungi work as well. Fungi also have mating types. And from these types became sexual reproduction. Originally, the first multicellular organisms were asexual reproducing, in that they just made clones of themselves. In fact, there are still multicellular organisms that do clone themselves. What happened is there was a mutation. That mutation was men. Men in fact, sexual reproduction, which became popular for flowering plants and animals. I was going to say humans. For the animals and plants, we mix these two different types of sexes, and by swapping our genes, it becomes advantageous, because when you have a genetic mix, first of all, you get a lot of different mutations that can handle various situations. When you start to inbreed over time, it starts to really, you get a lot of bad shenanigans going on. And then it also seemingly gets around parasites. And so a mother who has a parasitic infection will often not pass that on to the child. And so there are many advantageous reasons to why sex became the dominant de facto way of reproduction for multicellular organisms.
Well, I appreciate your response. Are you wanting me to go now so you can talk to
Sure,
someone
no,
else?
and I feel bad. That was a long. I would actually say.
You have to
No,
go,
I
Brett.
appreciate your effort, Amy.
Absolutely.
I appreciate the effort. Amy, I hope that we can talk later on. Just let me know if you ever want to have a discussion. You seem very interesting.
Thank you. I would say the same to you, Brett. I would love to have just a podcast where we could just get to, James, myself, and you can dig down. So if you'd like, stick around for more conversation. We just have Leo to get in, but if you want and you got to go as well, just any final thoughts. We have been talking, is Christianity rational?
I was under the impression that people take turns and then that was pretty much it. But if you're going to do more, I'll have to make myself some coffee. I am an old man. I need coffee if I'm going to stick around.
Absolutely. Stick around, make a pot. We welcome you. I know Brett has a channel out there himself, and so we're going to keep on chilling as much as we can. And thank you so very much, Brett, for coming on. And stick around for the open discussion. I'm about to get Leo on there. Exactly. We just have 2 stickers and chats out there. Holy moly, secular rarity. Woohoo! Sending so much love, saying, gotta say, I love this goddamn channel. And I have to say, we love secular rarity. We have more awesome YouTuber content you can find right down there. And I have just loved him doing the rounds. I can't help it. I go on Apologist and Dawa channels. I've seen secular rarity do the same thing. And if I could say, quite the mensch. Like, even I felt like I was being spicy on some of the Dawa channels. And he was just being so kind and gentle and still Socratic, trying to understand their views. So sending so much love, secular rarity, and then woo, now I gotta see secular pagan mom is sending rainbows. Woohoo! That's right, sending so much love and so many super stickers, and especially to all of our pagan and pantheistic, deistic. Basically, if you are a theist but you are on team science, I mean, you're with us. That's all that we really care about, is defending, separation of church and state and the views that deal with reason and logic, which is the theme of the show. And oh my goddess, Wild Heart again,
5 pounds.
Woo-hoo, 5 pounds, Wild Heart. And oh my gosh, we have to send youtube.com/wildheart again, right down there. I was just on. Wild Heart was having a marathon stream the other day. I was on there singing my heart out. I can't help it. And oh my, I don't care if it's the guy or gal songs, as long as they're good. We were having fun.
She goes both ways.
That's right, baby. And there was some theological back and forth. So the atheists and theists were debating, and then we were having some karaoke fun as well. So Sensing Love Wild Heart, go check out him, and we're having fun. Oh my lordy, Ian Davenport,
$5 Aussie.
Woo-hoo! Sending love, and he is sending a super sticker that is basically partying. Sending love, Ian.
Might have to make me start dancing for the super checks.
I know.
Yeah.
I love Oz's. I'm trying. You know, he's got the music that
song,
plays in the
The
background.
money. Yeah.
And anytime I
little
hear someone say shots,
jingle.
I just gotta go shot. Okay, TOS gods, I get it. But yes, sending love to Ian Davenport and all of you in chat. We love you so much. This channel is made possible by viewers like you. And all right, let's get Leo in before we go into the open discussion. Leophilius, what is up? We are Midnight Ranting on Is Christianity Rational? I hope you are doing well. What are your thoughts about the debate, the topic, or really anything that's been said tonight?
Well, with respect to the debate, I guess I don't understand what is meant by the statement, is Christianity rational? I don't know what it means for a position to be rational, because I just take rationality to be that which accords with the rules of inference and processes of reasoning, which is something that people do, not arguments. People accord with the rules of inference and reasonability. I guess there is some sense in which one could argue that perhaps arguments do adhere to those to some sense. I guess it's not really. I mean, it's not. There isn't. There's probably not a consensus on that matter. In the former instance, I would say that the question should be asked: Are Christians rational? To which my answer would be yes. Again, I take rationality. A person is rational if they accord to the rules of inference and act in accord with their reasons. And if somebody has reasons to accept the truth of Christianity, then they would be, and they do accept it, then they're acting in accord with their reasons. I don't know what sense it would make to say that they're not rational. The idea of, well, are Christians rational or atheists rational, I think is just meaningless to ask, because at the end of the day, that's going to be a discussion about what rationality means. And really, that's going to end up devolving into a discussion about normative realism versus normative anti-realism, which isn't a place most people want to go with those kinds of discussions. I just don't think that they're even meaningful to ask. I think that Christians are you almost always rational in the sense that they have reasons for accepting Christianity, and it is upon those reasons that they accept Christianity. But I could also say that Christianity is rational in the sense that people find reasons for believing in Christianity. So is Christianity rational? Sure. Is atheism rational? Sure. Are Christians rational? Yeah. Are atheists rational? Yes. But there was one other thing I wanted to say really quickly to finish up here. My last point. With respect to the debate, I thought it was an interesting debate. It was certainly more interesting than the last debate we discussed on here. I think that was with Matt Dillahunty and somebody else. I don't know, Muhammad Hijab or somebody like that. I don't know. It was a Muslim. I know that. But it seemed to me that what Schuyler was trying to do, and if I'm being honest, I do think he didn't. I think he did it poorly, was trying to run an argument from evil. And Stewart seemed to catch on to that, good on him, but he didn't have meaningful objections to it at all. But like I said, I don't think that Schuyler did the best job. I'm just going to be honest. I think he did a poor job in trying to run the argument from evil. Going to the drowning babies thing, I just think doesn't get at the heart of the issue. You're not going to be able to show that there's an issue just by running a purely emotional argument.
Thank you so very
Thank you,
much,
Leo.
Leo. And all right, we are about to go into the open discussion, but before we do have to send a big, fantastic, and wonderful love to Regos. Oh my
Thank you,
goddess.
Regos.
$20 super sending heart from our one and only Skull friend. Thank you so very much, Regos. We are sending love right back, and I am just so excited. Like I have been telling James, the pre-production, I would call it, on our emojis and emotes and badges and all this stuff are all going to be out there. They're all going to be fun. We're the first round are going to be James and I, but the second, the third, we want to get the Cat All-Stars. We want to get YouTube All-Stars, Atheist and Theist. Oh, the fun is just beginning, and it's all because of you guys and gals out there. Holy moly. Or should I just say moly? We're sending so much love. And with that, we love you all. Woo-hoo! That's right. We are sending so much love. And we're going to be moving into the open conversation. Ladies and gentlemen. Oh my God, James, we're transitioning. Oh, there we go. We are, in fact, Midnight Ranting on Is Christianity Rational? This is the deck for tonight. I'm standing with that D word. If you would like to join us, the YouTube link will be pinned and put into chat. But what is up, all, and what do you think? I don't know. Is Christianity rational?
Well, I was listening to Leo just earlier, and he made a lot of sense what he said. Obviously, people are going to believe something that they are convinced is rational and logical. It's not like somebody says, well, this is really stupid. I think I'm going to jump right on that. So he's right about what he says on that.
I'm just to jump in, just to repeat the message from Leo, right? Absolutely, because the question was malformed in a sense that both atheists and theists, for lack of a better word, are operating under rules of rationality. And all you eventually do, I think, as Leo was alluding to, is point to the philosophical underpinnings of whether they're using coherence or correspondence theory to justify their reasoning, right? So atheists are also rational. Again, pointing to my outer claim that reason and
that's
rationality.
That's the first thing you said that never made sense, Ralph.
No, I never make sense. That's not really my thing.
I love his voice. He sounds just like Peter Hitchens. That's awesome.
Isn't that Christopher Hitchens' brother or something like that?
Yeah, he's incredible. He's awesome.
Peter Hitchens is a great chat. It's a good chat.
Yeah, isn't he also a Christian?
Yeah, funny that, right?
Because I think there was actually a public debate between Peter and Christopher. I think I vaguely remember seeing that somewhere on YouTube, a debate between. I'm gonna have to look that up.
It was a good discussion from both of them.
Thanks for the 10 pounds there, Ralph.
Debate Hitchens versus Hitchens. I remember watching that.
But
when was that done?
I spoke to Peter Hitchens a few years ago.
It's posted 10 years ago.
He's a bit depressed now. He's a bit like sour. He's getting older and grumpy. So.
I think Christopher Hitchens was probably a good guy, but I don't think he was the greatest, defender of atheism.
Oh, I do agree in some terms on that, Leo. I think a lot of the arguments were emotional, kind of like what you brought up with the flood.
Yeah, I think I mean, I think that the point that Skylar is getting at with the drowning babies is a reasonable point. I think it just leads to the sort of the argument from evil, but just consistently reiterating, well, God drowned innocent babies isn't in and of itself an argument.
Well, it has nothing to do with the rationality of it, but I do like it as an argument about why Yahweh would be a dick.
Well, but I mean, most Christians would just say that if Yahweh's the one that did it, if God's the one that did it, then it's just a good action. It was
He
good
must
to
have
do
had a
that.
reason for it.
Divine
Or
command, yeah.
even
And
if
there's other
we
ways
can't
to defeat it.
understand it.
If I was, sorry. No, if I was an atheist and I just argue using just say moral foundation theory, which has the most strongest evidence for a 5-dimensional moral framework that's ratified, they've ingested the Quran, ingested the Bible, you just say, oh, if you're saying the drowning babies argument, I would just point to another presupposition that the care harm principle is more important to you than absolute authority. So even that can't be resolved as an argument. I'll just say, oh, you're making a presupposition that care harm is more important than sanctity, and the argument is still moot, right?
But I don't get when you mean it violates the care harm principle, like what does killing the baby get? Like what? I don't really understand. Like,
so in moral foundation theory, the only 5 dimensions. So there's no propositional moral statements you can make that cannot be collapsed into the MFT. I think the largest, if you look at the open database, is n is greater than 28,000 now. So it's a useful conversion than anything you'll ever find. It's just saying if there's 5 dimensions, one of them is care harm. Don't kill Amy. Don't drown the baby. Don't torture your sister. And the other one is authority. Listen to your father. Listen to your parents. Listen to your king. Listen to God. Then you're just saying on one dimension, if God was the ultimate authority on dimension X, i.e. obey God without condition, and the other one was don't hurt the baby, you're just saying my dimension is better than your dimension, which is a relativistic argument. Right?
But see, I think we could give rational and logical reasons as to why you wouldn't want to kill the baby,
which would collapse to care harm.
Well, but if God had reasons for permitting it, we just might not have access to those reasons.
We
correct?
could be playing that 4D chess. It just looks horrible and evil and
5D. He said.
Well, yeah, but see,
Exactly.
that's the thing is that what the theist is going to want to say, assuming that they take that this event happened the way that the Bible describes it, is that because the action was ordained by God, the fact that innocent babies drowned to death in it is not something that's wrong. But then
I mean,
the person could just come back and say, well, sure, I just don't see why I should be committed to what God has reasons for permitting or not permitting. I have different reasons. Why should I be committed to the reasons that God has? I mean, that's like one potential objection.
Logic. It's just like, look, I know that this dude is killing everyone, but he's the one in charge. So if you think about it, it's not really evil.
Mafia
well, it's not about him being in charge. It's about him having reasons and then acting on those reasons.
What are those?
Authority, right?
Well, but that was the point that I was making, is that we might not know what those reasons are, but we don't possess the moral knowledge that a being like God would have. We have epistemic ignorance to that moral knowledge.
Right.
So to us, the event would seem evil, but to God, he has justifying reasons for it. But the problem here is, at least from an argument from evil standpoint, is, well, that's just to say that God ought to permit the action. And if the action ought be permitted, that to me, that's just to say that it's a good action. So then I don't know what sense it would mean to say that doing it would be evil.
May I ask you guys a question? This is mostly for the non-believers in the room. It sounds as though you guys are convinced that objective evil actually exists. Am I right on this? Or
no, I don't think evil is
I would say no.
And I would lean somewhere in between. I believe in situational ethics. I do believe we can make moral statements of right and wrong.
So, but Amy, are you an anti-realist or a realist?
Again, Leah's taking over the conversation.
I wouldn't really identify with any of those.
Do you think that when I say rape is wrong, do you think that expresses some truth in an objective sense or not?
I would say
or
in the majority of situations, rape is wrong.
Yeah, but when you say that, are you saying that rape is wrong is a statement expressing truth independent of any stances that a person has? Or are you saying that rape being wrong is only going to be true
It
with respect
depends.
to some particular stance that you have?
And we'll actually go a little bit back and forth, and then I know Jen wants to go in. It's wrong as long as agents exist, more than one.
By the way, I'm not like taking over the discussion. I was asking
no.
Amy a clarifying question, and it doesn't seem like she would think I'm overtaking the discussion.
No,
So I don't know
I
why
like
a few people are
that.
saying that. I'm just trying to ask questions here.
No, I like what you offer. It's cool.
It's more of an
Yeah,
aspect
that'd
that
be
you're
great.
trying to create a philosophical debate, but which is now.
I don't know what you mean. All I'm doing is asking. All I was doing was trying to ask Amy a question in a way where she might understand, you know, the difference between realism and anti-realism. Maybe she does have a position, because when I engage with a lot of people, most people don't really know what it means to say moral realism versus moral anti-realism. So if I say those words, most people are gonna be like, "Wait, what? What's the difference?" So what I was doing was offering her sort of a scenario. It's like, okay, we say rape is wrong. Do you think that's true independent of any stance that a person has, or do you think that's only going to be true with respect to some particular stance? Because that's what's going to define the difference between realism and anti-realism.
Leo was just doing that as a test case, just to determine whether Amy was a realist.
And we have 2 super chats, but I do want to put, and Jen, and I want to put a button on this, is that when it comes to morality, I do believe that it is dependent on agents. It is dependent on conscious creatures being able to be in the game, and very specifically more than one. Because if you only have one agent, you can't talk about slavery. You can't talk about rape. You can't talk about murder. Because if you're one person on an island, it's just you and coconuts. And
how about self-harm, Amy?
How about self-harm? Well, I mean,
if you were just alone on an island, would you self-harm be a moral position?
No moral implications, good or bad.
Amy, what if the two agents that you speak of that are on the island both agree that slavery, murder, and all these things are correct?
Well, I would say that it all depends. Are you then saying that it's not really about their views? I would say that if the one agent enslaved the other without their consent, easily that would be bad. We could say if the one agent murdered the other agent, we could say that would be bad. If the other agent raped the other agent, we could say that's bad.
What if the agent argues that the other one's dying from some terminal disease and it would be better just to end them right then and there?
Are they dying from a terminal disease and they want to end their life right then and there?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would lean towards the direction of that's a more moral thing. If they're just suffering and every conscious second is just them screaming and screaming and screaming, and they're saying,
"Well,
so
I don't know what
some conditions you're fine with the killing."
On some, yeah, I would consider that a mercy. I mean, at some point, it's like saying, "Are you kill me?" Or if I got bit by a zombie and I am about to turn into the zombie, is it a more moral to allow that person to end their life? I mean, you know.
I think she's saying with consent. I think the proposal was not consent. You're just deciding that the person is in too much pain, so you're going to kill them against their will because you're deciding for them that their life isn't worth living. I think that's what he meant.
And okay, I do have to send love because I think House of Comments was talking in respect to just the channel having so much fun and getting more awesome people. Woohoo! So now that was the most reasonable statement I've heard from an atheist in a while. And I will continue to say that we want to hear, and I'll keep that up, we'll continue to say that we want our atheist and theist brothers and sisters on here no matter how spicy it gets. And as James has allocated me, he who controls the spice controls the universe. So thank you so very much, House of Comments. Thank you, Ralph, for being on here and continuing to send love and support. And we're going to send that right back. And then we also have Marty Mad Scientist for $5. Christians don't care about the Old Testament. We should argue New Testament back, not Old Testament forward. P.S. They taste yummy. Probably. Thank you so very much, Marty Mad Scientist. And it's you could take that in the terms of my sexuality both ways. I think sometimes it's important to talk about the Old Testament. Sometimes it's important to talk about the New Testament. Does anyone have any thoughts about that before we get Jen in here?
Well, I personally don't have an issue talking about anything in the Bible.
Woo-hoo. That's right. Not shying away from that's just the Old Testament. But we're actually, but I understand also what he's saying. So I'm sending love both to Ralph and Marty for the love and
You
support.
can't just attack the Old Testament, but it's easier.
We are adding in Jen. What is up? Thank you for joining us. The lovely, fabulous, and fantastic Church of Entropy. Go check out her channel. She does fantastic commentary and debates. But Jen, hope you're doing well. We're talking, is Christianity rational? What are your thoughts about the debate, the subject, or anything we've been talking about?
I mean, wonderful show as usual. James, also thanks for hosting. Really great to see everybody. I've been enjoying watching the debates everyone's been doing, so that's been awesome. And I wanted to hop in this one because I just really like the title, and I've been thinking about these questions a lot. So I realize there's actually more than one, not always overlapping definition of the term rational. And I guess I was wondering if it necessarily corresponded to the 3 laws of thought, or what the connection was. Because if it does, I would actually say Christianity is rational, because these 3 laws of thought do appear to be a uniquely Christian creation. If rational is what's best for oneself on the basis of some sort of social argument, I don't know. That would be a hard argument to make. I have not seen that argument made too many times. And then finally, if the rational is beliefs corresponding to reality, then it would be very hard for me to see how Christianity could represent that. But yeah, that's about all for now, and I hope to be able to participate in the remainder of the conversation meaningfully. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jen. Good to have you on.
Thank you, Jen. And so I want to, and thank you for being here, and I want to illuminate on those 3 rules. You said they come from Christianity. What would they be? And
I don't think they come from Christianity. I think they come from Aristotle, but they were used by Christianity. So I would say they're a Christian sort of creation, the way Neoplatonism is, if you would.
What are these 3 laws?
Yep.
You can look up laws of thought. You know, I feel if that was you, Leophilius, I have a hard time believing you've never heard of them before.
No, I've never heard of the phrase 3 laws of thought. I was just wondering if you could explicate what that means.
Oh, do you mean, and this is just, do you mean the laws of logic, like law of contradiction, law of excluded middle, and the principle of identity?
Yeah.
Yes, the 3 outer rules.
Yeah, those are the 3 laws of classical logic.
Classical logic. They've been subsumed by proper predicate logic. Right?
Well, I mean, they're also in predicate logic, but
they're ultra-Christian. So if that's what rational is,
I don't see how they're. What do you mean when you say they're Christian?
Rational.
What do you mean when you say they're Christian?
They're a product of Christian imperialism.
Except that I'm pretty sure the 3 laws of I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they came about before Christianity was on the planet.
They predate Christ, correct?
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah. So then, how could they be Christian if they came about before Christianity?
Used a bunch of stuff that came about
before
but
it. Christianity. Did Christians use toilets?
Is that a good analogy?
Well, just to answer the question, because I haven't gone through the analogy, so we don't know yet.
Be interested in your
did Christians use
right
toilets
now, at this point?
What about curtains? Did Christians use curtains? Well, the point that I'm getting at is to say that Christians used something, therefore it's a Christian thing, doesn't seem like a very good argument. I don't think that because Christians used a concept that it's their concept, particularly when the concept they're using predates the formation of their religion.
Well, all the ideas Christianity used predate the formation of Christianity. That's the whole idea with a synthetic imperialist religion. It's based on prior concepts.
I don't know what that means.
May I ask a question since we're going along with the
Absolutely.
rest? Do you whenever it comes to the two worldviews of, and I know some atheists say it's not a worldview, but I think everybody has a view of the world and how they see the universe and reality. But my question is, what do you think is more beneficial for mankind, humanity in general, Christianity or atheism?
So I'll give the answer that I think what many atheists want me to say, which is that atheism is not a worldview, and so you can't measure it like that. I'm now going to give the answer that I want to give, which is atheism, because I think that when you accept a belief, no matter what belief it is, without a good empirical foundation, I think that you then not only are you open to accepting other views that may not stand and test empirical evidence, but then you have a hard time criticizing others because you are being hypocritical.
I apologize, Brett. I was I don't think I quite caught your question. Would you mind repeating it really quickly?
Sure, no problem, Leo. I'm asking everyone in here, what do they think brings more benefit and advantage to society? Christianity or the worldview of atheism? Amy says there is no worldview, but don't you all have a view on how the world works, how the universe got here, how life came into existence?
And
Seems
I would
like you
almost
got a
agree.
view.
I mean,
would
I
agree
do.
with Leo, before he said it, I've said naturalism. I'll see if he
Yeah.
agrees with that word.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, I personally think atheism is a worldview. It's a view of a world in which gods are not a part of it. I understand not all atheists use atheism to mean that. I think that's fine. So I think it's going to depend. But just to answer your question quickly, Brett, it seems that you're asking which. So let me rephrase your question. Then you tell me whether you think it's fair. Which contributes or which gives more value to society, Christianity or atheism? Is that a fair way of rewording it, or no?
That'd be fine, sure.
Okay. So for me, it's going to be hard to answer that. It's not that I think that your question is like bad or anything like that, but just for me, it's going to be more difficult for me to answer it because I take value, honestly, to probably be more of a normative term. So what somebody values is going to be based on the particular desires or standards, what have you, that they have. So if somebody values certain things, they may say that Christianity is going to be more valuable to society because it's going to be what accords with their personal values more. But I could also say the same thing about somebody who's an atheist. So I think that there's going to be answers to this question, but I don't think there's really going to be an objective answer. I think it's going to depend on the particular values that a person has and how they incorporate those into their broader worldview. Maybe that's not meaningful as an answer to you, but
No,
that's all I can.
That's excellent, and I always appreciate the fact that you put a lot of thought into it, and also Amy on some of your responses. May I make a statement about something with the hope that I don't offend anybody?
Not at all. As long as you respect the TOS gods, you can say whatever you want.
Well, I don't know if you realize this, Amy. I know Leo probably knows this, but I used to be an atheist myself. And I spent a lot of time on forums and blogs, did videos and all that. And one of the things that I remember finding myself in discussions constantly is the stats. Atheism seems to have the highest suicide rate. It seems to have the highest substance abuse rate over all religions and groups combined. It doesn't seem like it benefits. And also, according to stats, it seems like people who believe in a God or faith live much longer than non-believers.
And can I tell you, I hate to say, because it's not funny, I would say ironic, coincidental. I've been thinking about this point because I often get told by people who, are not happy by, let's just say, the LGBT community. They're like, look at the suicide rate. And I always point out that, yes, the attempted suicide rate is very hard or high for people like in the trans community or in just the LGBT community in general. But the number one suicide victims in the United States is older white men. I bring this up because that we shouldn't label people or think harshly of any group, because we never know when it's going to be us in that category. Also, Penelope is making sure her claws are good behind her, but she's so cute. And so,
Amy, in accordance to Forbes, the data says trans are currently second, but the elder white men are third. The highest rate of suicides are actually returned veterans.
Well, I would have to see, because from what
I'll get
I
the data
understand,
again if you want.
Trans are not. It's the second in attempted. The number one actual suicide victims are older white gentlemen, and probably even more so veterans. My point being is that we need to address the problem, but we should never blame the victim, and we should not use that, I think, as a data point towards whether a position or a person is correct in any sort of view. I would say that.
Can I hop in with something?
Sure. Well, I actually, just to put a bow, I don't
Sorry.
think. No, Jen. I'm so glad you're actually on. Whether or not atheism or Christianity leads to a higher rate of suicide, I think is almost inconsequential, because what we should be caring about, what all I care about, is the truth. Is Christianity true or not? Because if it's not true and it would lead to a slightly lower dip in depression,
It's not.
then I don't mind, because all I care about, my guiding light, is the truth. And so the utility is definitely secondhand. And my final asterisk is sending love to anyone out there dealing with any sort of depression or anything going on. No matter if you are a theist or an atheist, you always have a community, especially here in the skeptic and ranting community, that will accept you come one as you are. And is my bow.
I just wanted to say real quick before you go ahead with what you're going to say, Leophilius, with the suicidality.
And sure, let Jen finish, and then Leo, you're on the dock.
I really, really wanted to say that even if, let's say, we grant the whole suicidality atheism thing, I just want to say I don't see how you could possibly establish if it's the suicidality that caused the atheism or the atheism that caused the suicidality. Both of those don't appear to line up. I don't want to say that atheism is a mental problem, but let's say that suicidality would appear to be more caused by depression. I don't see the link, basically, that this person was trying to establish before, and I think it basically falls apart on you. Even if you grant it, you can't tell which caused which. The suicidality
after Leo,
correlation doesn't equal causation. Yeah.
Yeah. After Leo says what he wants to say, I'll explain where my theory comes in on this, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, and what I have to say is just really short. I just wanted to source a claim that Amy made, because she is in fact correct, at least according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Per 2020, in specifically the United States of America, the rate of suicide is highest in middle-aged white men. And again, this is according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention per 2020. I'll put the link in the chat. And just again, this is in specifically the United States. So I'm not making any claims about any other countries.
All right. May I go now? I don't want to cut anybody off. Okay, so there's also the stats of the highest substance abuse rate. That means that there's a lot of drugs, alcohol involved. And I believe that that can also add to severe depression and problems already. Whenever I was an atheist, granted, before I was a child and I was a Christian, and then whenever I became a teenager, I turned into an atheist. I started finding the more and more I was an atheist, it started leading down a road into something called nihilism, where I just did not see, I knew that I could have subjective meaning, you know, oh, playing the guitar, this is something nice, this is something cool. But I kind of put it this way. Imagine that you're sitting in a classroom, you're given all kinds of homework, but the teacher tells you you have to do all this work, but afterwards, the moment you're done, I'm going to set it all on fire. Everything that you've ever done is gone. It just, I can see how that would cause some people to go, that's rough.
And so I could appreciate that. I think that there is a view of skepticism that I think can lead you down to nihilism, but I don't think that appreciates life. I think that we are honestly one of the greatest chemical reactions in the universe. I think that it's a privilege and honor to be a sentient, introspective, conscious creature. We get to do just a lot of cool things. A lot of harm goes out in the world, but we actually have the chance to put in a lot of good. I understand. Like I said, a lot of atheists go through an angry atheist stage just because we feel like we've been, to be as geeky as I can, bamboozled our whole lives. And yet, and so I actually, because I've actually just recently learned about you, Brett, like your journey. I've seen you on a few channels, and I know you said you were an atheist. And so what is it? Is there something specifically that really... I guess my question is, was it a journey in which there was no specific moment and it's, a bunch of data points, or was there really something that got over that roller coaster? What is it that made Christianity specifically rational for you?
Well, I did a lot of studying of the Bible, did a lot of reading, and I also felt as though, and I know this doesn't work on non-believers, because whenever I was an atheist, I said that didn't work for me either, but personal experiences, things that I did, but I know that I can't hand that over to you on a plate unless you have your own experience to be able to do something. But that's where I came to my conclusion.
Well, so did you said a personal experience. I agree, personal experiences are hard to translate, but is there an experience that got you over that?
Yes. I about 20 years ago, whenever my daughter was born, the doctors told me she was going to die. And then
I'm so sorry.
I'd say about 5 months goes by, and they say, well, she'll survive. She's gotten out of the critical part, but she's going to be slow for the rest of her life. Well, when she reached 19 years old, everything went away. The entire condition got fixed. Now, I know some non-believers say, did she get looked at by doctors? Yes, she did. But I believe that God actually put doctors and science here to be able to resolve issues. And I think they're going to continue to get better at it.
Well, can I push back on that just a little?
Sure.
So, first off, let me start by saying I don't know how she got better. I'm just glad that she got better. Second off, I believe you that this is a story that not only happens, that I think it happens to others across the country. I think we've seen it and all across the world. But my then question for you is, what happens to the sons and daughters that those type of events happen and they don't make it? I mean, isn't there some sort of then assertion that God is making the selection, that God wanted one child to live and get better and possibly another child to either not get better or not fully recover?
It's a valid question. It's something I've wrestled with for years, Amy. My daughter, she was basically roommates in the hospital with a child that had leukemia. I watched the parents pray over their kid over and over and over. And unfortunately, the child died. So I don't know how to answer that question. All I know is my daughter did make it. I do not understand why God chooses some and then others. Perhaps you can call it a miracle or just a blessing. I don't know.
Is there any way I could get in here really quickly, or are you guys having
Absolutely.
Okay. So the first thing I wanted to say was to Beamsy. So on the CDC site, it's not specifically saying which demographics have higher rates, just that there are groups of demographics that have higher rates, according to the source that I provided. Now, again, I'm not even saying that they're necessarily like the correct or the standard. I'm simply saying that according to this source, 69.68% of suicide deaths in 2020 were white males. Now, the thing that we need to understand is white males is going to be a significantly broader demographic than specifically veterans. Veterans can be women, veterans can be black males, Mexican females, Asian males. So white males is a significantly broader category than just veterans. So that's probably why on the CDC site, they don't specifically outline which of the demographics that they listed has the highest rates. Honestly, that's probably not going to be something they're going to be able to determine, at least very accurately. So simply because it's not a broad demographic, and it's going to differ. I mean, the white men who are veterans who commit suicide may be committing suicide for completely different reasons than, I don't know, transgender people serving in the military. So it's just going to be really hard to pin down causes and things like that. The second thing I wanted to say was to Brett with respect to suicidality and religion. I don't really have any strong opinions on that. I honestly, I just don't think it really matters. Primarily because correlation doesn't equal causation. I'm willing to grant that like drug use and crime and suicide are higher amongst atheists. I just don't think that any discussion really turns on that. But according to a 2020 paper by Ryan Lawrence, Maria Aquino, and Barbara Stanley, it's called Religion and Suicide Risk: A Systematic Review. I'd like to just read the abstract here, if I may. It's not too long. Would that be all right?
It's up to Amy.
Sure, as long as I'm not sure what the TOS agreements are on papers, but as long as you can, sounds good.
Yeah. I don't think TOS has any issues with me reading a paper from the NIH National Library of Medicine. Anyway, the abstract said, it's the abstract, so you can take it for what you think it's worth. But the abstract says, although religion is reported to be protective against suicide, the empirical evidence is inconsistent. Research is complicated by the fact that there are many dimensions to religion, such as affiliation, participation, and doctrine, as well as suicide, such as suicide ideation, suicide attempt, and suicide completion. We systematically reviewed the literature on religion and suicide over the last 10 years, which was 89 articles, with a goal of identifying what specific dimensions of religion are associated with specific aspects of suicide. We found that religious affiliation does not necessarily protect against suicidal ideation, but does protect against suicide attempts. Whether religious affiliation protects against suicide attempts may depend on the culture-specific implications of affiliating with a particular religion, since minority religion groups can feel socially isolated, which can be a contributor to suicide. After adjusting for social support measures, religious service attendance is not especially protective against suicidal ideation, but does protect against suicide attempts and possibly protects against suicide, which would be like completion. Future qualitative studies might further clarify these associations. So what it seems to indicate is that being religious might protect you against like going through with your suicide. The reasons for that we could speculate about till the cows come home, but it seems that the idea of committing suicide is not something that religion seems to protect you against. And I will link this article in both the private chat here as well as the YouTube live chat. That's all I had.
And we will keep on having open discussion. I am going to send the StreamYard link back into stream, sending love to everyone out there, especially as we deal with this topic. But it is, once again, we're talking serious subjects because we are asking ourselves if this specific theology is rational. I think it has a lot to do with our heartstrings, especially when we're dealing with morality, when we're dealing with personal experiences that sway important beliefs. And so, sending love out there, and I am gonna in a second actually start to swing around to some of the notes from the debate. I also had some questions from the opener, but
Pixie, get your ass in here.
oh my,
Amy, may I ask one last question before we get into that?
absolutely.
All right. It's a pretty much a moral hypothetical. Is that okay to do in here?
Sure.
All right. My moral hypothetical is any of you, you're by yourself, you walk out of a store, a building, or a hospital. You hear a gunshot in the distance. As you approach, you see that someone has been shot. They're going to die, and they're not going to get to the hospital quick enough or inside quick enough to be able to be saved. It's a fatal wound. They're probably going to die in under a minute. And they cry out to you and they say, please pray for me. Now, I know that there's non-believers in here, and some of you are absolutely convinced there's probably no God. But would you pray for a person knowing that their life is about to end?
Would I pray for them? No, I wouldn't. Would I hold their hand and stay with them until they died? That's probably a moral thing to do. It might be a hard thing to do, but I think that not only, we respect the living, and one of the great things about introspective animals is that we respect the dead. And so, through that entire process. Don't know if anybody else want to take the
I
hypothetical?
just want to say one thing.
Sure.
Randy, I see you there in the chat, Randy.
The Godfather of atheism.
It's hard not to like Randolph. It just is.
That's why the clip of Darth just getting so mad at Randolph Richardson.
This is the guy who is the president of Canadian atheists. It's so funny.
Such a nice man.
Thank you, Jared. Sending love, Pixie. Woo-hoo. And sending love to everyone out there as we are asking ourselves, is Christianity rational? As well as just having some fascinating conversation.
Also, I did want to apologize to Beamsy. If I came off as like dominating the discussion, I do apologize for that. I definitely don't think I have been. I just was responding to a statement you made. You seem to be stating that the CDC is supporting the idea that veterans are the singular demographic with the largest suicide rates. I wasn't even necessarily disagreeing with that, just saying that according to the source I was reading, and I want to clarify that point, according to the source I was reading, that wasn't the case. But I also clarified that I don't think there's really any way to really like hammer out which specific demographic is going to have the highest rates. I just don't think statistically we're going to be able to determine that.
This is one of the things where you may both be right, and so depending on how you slice it. And so my main thing to address that is generally, if I may just show my cards, is to just rethink who I think are the majority of the people who talk about the subject and try to put it in a light that they themselves would understand, because it reframes it mostly to them. And so because there is no winners in that subject, it's a race to the bottom. We were just trying to give help and hope that no matter who they are, they can find meaning in life. And I will continue to say they have a community right here with the Skeptic and Ranting community. But yeah.
Well, Amy and Leo, to go back into Christianity, is it rational? Would you say that atheism is subjective or objective?
Atheism is subjective?
In what sense? Like with respect to its truth? Or
yeah, that's a little...
What, subjective or objective? Is it based upon opinion, or is it based upon something that exists beyond humanity and man's feelings?
Well, I think that's probably going to depend on the atheist you ask. I guess I'm still not really understanding what you're asking. When I think of subjective and objective, I think with respect to with respect to something, like the truth or the existence of something. So if you're asking me, is atheism true objectively, or is it only true with respect to what some particular individual believes? I don't know if I really have an answer to that question.
All right. 90% of folks that I've asked that state that they're full-blown atheists, whenever I ask, do you believe in the possibility of God? Believe in the possibility. What would you say to that?
If you're asking me, do I think it's possible that God exists? I would say, well, it's going to depend on the particular conception of God. I do certainly think that there are conceptions of God that I don't think are logically incoherent or inconsistent.
Okay. How about just an entity or a powerful life form capable of creating a universe?
And if I could just say, possibility and impossibility, I think, have to be demonstrated. I think we're normally talking about probability. Is it probable? And without an actual case study, we can't say whether it is possible or impossible.
I would like to clarify something here, because I hear this a lot. Possibility is a null hypothesis. You can't demonstrate that something is possible. I don't even know how you would go about doing that. All the word possible means is there's no contradiction. So if you examine, if you're thinking, okay,
So like according to Christian logic, right?
Is this something that I can conceive of without any sort of logical inconsistencies or anything in it? And if you can't find any, then you would have to grant that it's possible. So with a null hypothesis, you can disprove it, but you can't prove it. You can demonstrate that it's false, but you can't demonstrate that it's true. There's nothing you can do to demonstrate that something is possible, because all that means is to say that there's just no logical contradictions in the state of affairs. Now, if you say that something is impossible, that's going to have to be with respect to some contradiction. Now, possibility and impossibility can go much deeper than that. It's going to depend on the modality that you're using, logical, metaphysical, nomological. But even then, we could go into the different modalities. Possibility isn't a thing that you show. It's possibility. And I mean, Overnator is actually right in the chat. Possibility isn't even a very high bar. To say that something is possible isn't saying much. It is possible, at least logically, that you could go faster than the speed of light. But it is not possible, it is impossible, nomologically or physically, to go faster than the speed of light.
How do you know that it's logically possible to go faster? You don't know that you can conceive of that.
Because there is no contradiction there. Again, possibility. Again, possibility simply means there's no contradiction. And all a contradiction is Well, I don't know what you mean when you say Christian logic. Can you tell me what you mean by that?
Aristotelian logic is Christian.
Well, Aristotle wasn't a Christian. Aristotle wasn't a Christian, so I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you mean when you say that Aristotelian logic is Christian logic, when Aristotle existed prior to Christianity's existence. He wasn't a Christian, so I don't know what you're saying. Yeah, but again, I asked you if Christianity used toilets or if Christianity used curtains.
And now you're afraid of what it means.
The fact that Christianity uses things does not mean it originated those ideas. So to say that Christianity uses toilets, the Christians use toilets and have used toilets for pretty much all of history.
Right.
The vast majority of Christians has. Excuse me. Sorry. I haven't finished speaking.
I'm gonna pull you guys back into the corner.
The point is, sorry. I haven't finished speaking. That's what I'm trying to do, but I'm getting interrupted when I try to do that. So, the thing here is the fact that Christians use something doesn't make it theirs. That's not how this works.
I think it kind of
when you refer to Aristotelian logic, number one, most philosophers don't actually subscribe to Aristotelian logic, so I don't know why you're bringing that up. But number two, logic doesn't have anything to do with Christianity. So logic has existed long before it and makes no statements about it.
And all right, guys, we'll let you keep on going back to that if you remember to bring it up again. But I want to get Shane in, and I know Ralph, is your mic working? I know you were trying to test.
I'm not sure. Can you tell?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, it's working. Okay, brilliant. Okay. Thanks. Just a quick point to back up what Leo said. Possibility means nothing. It's an infinite space of potential. Impossibility is real and concrete. Like there's no integer between 2 and 3, and there's no greatest prime number. Impossibility is what constrains things, right? Anything can be possible. It's impossible. Which
could a square circle be possible? Could a married bachelor be possible?
Integer between 2 and 3? Right?
That's not what I asked. Could a married bachelor, could a man who is both married and a bachelor simultaneously be possible, logically?
In a certain classes of logic, yes. But not
which class of
person.
logic would that be?
Logics that would permit both.
Christian
Yeah,
logic.
which kind of logics would it be that?
You can make up your own types of logics, but one.
Well, I mean, I know what dialetheism is, but I don't think even a dialetheist would say that it's possible for there to be a married bachelor. But I think it would also depend on how you're defining married and bachelor.
I don't want to deflect the conversation, but yeah, there are different classes. Yeah, different classes of logics where you can make such statements. Clearly, what the utility value of those logical systems would be a different debate, right?
So you are only familiar with Aristotelian logic.
I don't know what you mean when you say Aristotelian logic. I'm talking about like classical logic and dialetheism. These are terms I've used, but do you know what dialetheism is?
So
I mean, if you think that I'm dealing only in
deny what I just said,
Aristotelian logic, then I would say that the answer to that is probably no.
Do I transcend paraconsistent logic? Irrelevant to this right now. The question is whether Christianity is co-arising with what we're calling the laws of thought. And the answer is the evidence.
I don't know what the laws of thought are.
Well, it's been explained to you already on this very stream.
Well, I mean, look, if you mean laws of logic, then I don't know why you wouldn't just say laws of logic, because nobody knows them as the laws of thought. That's not what they're called. That's not ever what they've been called. They're the 3 laws of classical logic. And they don't actually hold in most forms of dialetheism, which are non-classical logics. Dialetheism is one form of what's often referred to as paraconsistent
keep
logic.
citing classical logic over and over and over with your false dichotomies, and those
what,
are only
what false dichotomy have I presented?
Anytime you use the rhetoric, it either is or it isn't. That's
when have I used that? When have I used that rhetoric? When did I use that rhetoric?
Next time you do it, okay?
Yeah, but when did I do that before? Because if I haven't done that before, then your objection is completely moot.
Are you saying you've never used Aristotelian logic before?
You keep going back to Aristotelian logic. Can you tell me what that is?
You don't know what the 3 laws of logic
are? I don't know what it's. I don't know what
Aristotelian
logic is. Can you tell me what it is?
Well, I don't think you're telling the truth right now. So what do you say to that? Because I think you're afraid that
so you can't tell me what Aristotelian logic
are co-arising, and you're afraid of what that means because you think you're an atheist,
you can't
but
tell
now
me what it is.
You're a Christian. And Ralph, I think, can back me up on this.
You haven't proved
he's
anything.
Historically more honest than.
I
don't think you honestly know enough about history to be honest about it.
Well, that's what you think. I don't really care what you think.
Tell the truth, Jan.
You keep going back to Aristotelian logic when I haven't mentioned that at all. And then you said you keep mentioning it, but you won't tell me what it means. I'm just confused. Why? What does it mean? What is Aristotelian logic?
Does she mean classic logic? I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Aristotelian logic and classical logic, I don't think are the same thing.
Well, I'm equating them. If you don't like that.
Well, yeah, but it would be like if I said an apple and a dog mean the same thing.
Can I be honest?
Somebody said, "Well, I don't." Well, why is it that you keep interrupting me every time I go to speak?
It feels like you're interrupting.
Why is it that you keep interrupting me every time I speak? I just don't understand that. I don't understand why you would do that.
We let you make your statement.
Well, and actually, I am going to interrupt both to remind everyone that both Jen and Leo have been on Debate Me Raw on this channel. And so if you like what either of them have to say, they both have fantastic channels of themselves and have been entered the ring right here. And we're about to actually have another one with Peter and Martin, along with a whole bunch more debates coming too. Woo-hoo! So thank you to the panel. Sending love. We're going to continue the conversation, but we are going to add in Shane. What is up? We are Midnight Ranting on Is Christianity Rational, along with a whole bunch of theological and logical fun and back and forth. Hope you're doing well. What are your thoughts about the debate, the topic, or anything that we've been talking about tonight?
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I didn't get to see the debate yet. I've been working. I just got home a little bit ago. But I'm familiar with all 4 of the people that were in the debate. And Stu and Cliff can be a little frustrating. But that's just my opinion. The one thing I wanted to say that people were kind of talking about as far as morality earlier is Leo, I agree that what you were saying is that if we're looking at from an outside perspective as to the morality of God as justifying or our objections to say, hey, drowning babies is wrong, but not according to God's standard if he's setting the ultimate standard. I think now again, I haven't seen the debate, but usually what Skylar likes to argue is not that what God's doing is wrong. He's trying to say that God's character is morally contradictory as defined by his own set of standards. So if you take a look at, what's that verse? Corinthians, here it is. 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8, where, love is patient, love is kind, love, blah, blah, blah. If people are saying God is love or God is a loving God and love is defined in this verse, and then you can say, okay, God is not patient, God is not kind, God does envy, God does boast, God is proud, God does dishonor others, God is self-seeking, is easily angered, does keep a record of wrongs, does delight in evil, or well, maybe not that one. I don't know. But you know what I mean? Like, I think that's the point he was trying to make, is that if you use the standards set out in the Bible and then compare God to those standards that he himself set out, then you can make a case that he's being morally contradictory, rather than saying from an objective standard, from an outside looking in, saying, hey, because then you wouldn't have any basis for your moral objection. It would just be relativism.
Yeah, the only problem with that statement, of course, is that all moral actions must have a judgment component, and a mistake would be you're going to be the one performing the judgment on God. People who believe in God are not going to permit judgment on God. So you're basically at right angles to each other, right?
Right.
Your opinion of God is a moral judgment. It's the 4th piece of the rest model, right? I have a judgment at the end. That judgment you do not claim on God. So therefore, most theists will look and you go like, well, you're not to judge God. You can find as many contradictions as you like, but you're not in a position to have the moral authority to judge God.
Well, that's the whole point is, when you're saying, who are you to judge God? You don't have the right to judge God. The whole point is, I'm not judging God according to the standards God himself has laid out. He fails or to meet his own standards of what.
Because you're still the one performing the judgment statement.
I'm sorry?
But you'd be still the one performing some exegesis and saying, here's a set of moral propositions, here's what I believe God is doing that's contradicting it. You make those observations. Then you get to the judgment phase and you say, by these things, he's judged. And that's where it just falls down, because you can't judge God.
No, I'm not making a moral judgment of whether God is good or bad. I'm saying he's contradictory to his own standard.
The Bible, the Quran, all holy texts are riddled with logical contradictions.
Look, I think we're past the point. I think that what the Christian is going to say is that like vague excerpts from the Bible aren't like going to be enough to establish what God did or didn't say. It seems to be my experience. What they're going to say is that if because I just take what is good morally to just be that which one ought do, like that which one has most reason to do. And if God has most reason to drown a bunch of babies, then God is doing what he has most reason to do. God is doing what he ought to do, and the action is just good. I don't know what sense it's going to make to say that God acting in accord with his reasons is immoral.
Leo, you mind if I ask you something?
Yeah, go ahead.
What is the difference between a theist view on death and that of a non-believer?
I think it's going to depend on the particular theist and the non-believer, but in some like generalized sense, a theist is generally going to believe that death persists in some way, shape, or form beyond what I guess you could say is like sort of a human death, whereas a non-believer, at least again generally, is not going to believe that.
Right. The non-believer would most I have met some non-believers who actually believe there may be an afterlife, but without a God. Strange, I know, but I've heard it. I've actually heard it.
I have too, actually. So.
Yeah, but for the loss of a sadly, unfortunately, no matter what aisle you're on, if a child passes in the theistic view, they transition over to God immediately. Just like that, they're with God. But for the atheist worldview, they're dead, they're gone. No justice, no fairness, just over.
I mean, that's what I think. You die, you're dead.
That depends. There are theists that would think that children who die maybe don't join God or go somewhere else. But again, this is even if this is true, it's more an appeal to consequences. It's just because if atheism is true, then this thing would be really bad, and I don't want this
what
thing
I like to call the bummer fallacy.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like if
It's funny, the bummer.
If there was no God and we all died, then that would be a bummer. Like, yeah, it would, but just because it's a bummer, it doesn't mean it's.
Isn't it kind of worse if there's a God that's judging you and sending you into a lake of fire, though? Wouldn't no God be better than that?
Well, I myself,
I would agree, Jen, actually.
I'm an annihilationist. So
I would say that no God would be better than going to a paradise for eternity. I don't want to spend an eternity anywhere. There's a point where I just want to stop existing. I don't want to exist literally forever. That would be so bad.
I think it would be torturous unless God took away your free will, which they say He will. So you'll be fine. You'll just be on mindless zombie forever.
I agree with both of you guys, but then it sounds like what you're saying, Brett, is. I mean, in some ways, you agree with the atheist in that we're not going to exist so you're saying we get annihilated. So in certain ways, at least some of us are right. We're not going to exist after we die.
I don't think it's just a matter of being a non-believer. I know that there's some Christians out there where they're real strict. It's like you have to say certain words. You have to do a certain dance. You have to do certain rituals. I believe that God can see into our heart, and I think there's a lot of people who are going to be surprised about who gets in and who doesn't. I think it's possible for someone who's got a good heart, who does have love in them, the opportunity.
Amen, brother.
Can I then ask you, and this isn't maybe a true dichotomy, but a lay one, do you separate between works and faith? So a good person, they just do good things their whole life, they're getting in, but someone who maybe believes but doesn't do any good things, they aren't going to be in the super fun party time.
Not in the Christian belief system, Amy, because doing all the good in your life and living a perfect life does not guarantee access to heaven. You're saved by grace, not by your deeds.
So that I would say,
depends on.
So that sounds like the opposite, though. So if you're saying by your grace, by your faith, then in my,
I think it's God's grace, isn't it?
It's God's grace.
It depends on if you're a Calvinist or if you're an Arminianist or.
So the Christians, can you see why that people really wouldn't want to believe in this religion at all and would think that God was definitely not real? Can you kind of see why people might take that position?
Because they don't just because someone doesn't like something, it doesn't make it untrue. I don't like a lot of things.
Well, just because you like it doesn't make it true either.
I understand, but I feel like I argued my rational views on why it is that I hold to God earlier.
And I will say,
the argument I'm making is that Christians are abusing logic, this Aristotelian logic. They're abusing it to make their point, which proves that their dogma is false if they have to abuse logic to justify it.
And just to put the cards on the table, Jen is a pantheist.
Well, I kind of, I know this will come off strange, although I'm a Christian, I do hold that a lot of the pantheist view is logical and actually is compatible with my view.
Well, that's unsurprising, but that's not really the Bible. That's more the pagan history of Christianity that would lead people to such a view.
All right. That's the way you feel about it.
We lost Leo.
Oh, send in love, Leo. Check out Leo's channel, youtube.com/Shay. Join back. Well, I'm going to give him a shout out anyway, even though he's back. youtube.com/Leophilius. We brought him back from hell, where James and I often go to sell timeshares.
I'm trying to visualize, Amy. What does abusing logic look like? Can you help me out? What does it look like to abuse logic? It looks like a very physical kind of thing.
You're thinking about some BDSM dungeon, aren't you, right now?
Oh my!
I know I am.
It's your normal use of logic, Ralph.
I'm just imagining someone like abusing like a propositional clause and beating it to something. I'm not sure.
Well, it's
like
if it's been a very naughty boy, then we tie him up. What are we talking about again?
Sit down, Morgan Mullins.
Well, I have to be honest with you. I didn't comprehend how I was abusing logic. Were you talking to me specifically? It sounded more like generalization.
Absolutely wasn't talking to you. I don't think you are intentionally abusing logic. I think that Christianity uses what we are now calling the 3 laws of logic or Aristotelian logic without even necessarily knowing it as a rhetorical strategy. And what I'm saying is that the atheists are using the identical rhetorical strategy, thereby leading me to conclude that they are a sect of Christianity, which is something that Leophilius does not seem to like.
That's not
much.
That's a
Yeah, I've already clarified there, so I don't know what you're talking about. If you didn't understand my clarification, then you should ask for further clarification instead of misrepresenting my position. At least that's the charitable thing to do.
My point was that just because 2 different groups or 2 different people share one particular quality or property doesn't mean that they share other properties too. So just because an atheist and a Christian use logic doesn't mean that atheists are also Christians because they use the same thing.
It kind of does if no one else uses it, though.
Yeah, but like all logicians use classical logic.
Out of the Christian Empire.
Everybody uses the 3
that you know of in the Christian Empire, but not in the East.
The first aspects of classical logic were developed by Islamists, not by Christians.
All right, and
but also
this is
just things that
Al-Farabi or Abu Nasr al-Farabi was one of the first ones. So what you're saying is just like historically incorrect. I'm sorry.
Did you hear what I just
when you go to the store and you buy things and you use math, or even if you look at here's one thing and here's another thing. These are 2 things and they're different.
You do understand that this is disanalogous, right? Like I'm telling you facts. You can't cite an example to disprove it. I'm not even sure you're understanding my point and you're jumping to try to undermine it.
I don't think you're making a point, honestly. I don't think you're making a point.
I don't really care about your hot takes.
Can you tell me what your point is? What point is it that you are making?
That Christianity used Platonism and what we're calling Aristotelian logic to justify itself, basically to bang people over the head until they finally said, yeah, okay.
Okay, sure. I'm failing to see how that.
It's what the Greeks would have called.
Wait, I thought your point was.
It's what the Greeks would have called sophistry, if that makes sense.
Good night.
I thought your point was that atheists use logic and Christians use logic. Therefore, atheists are actually Christians.
The atheists have the same rhetorical strategy as the Christians. If you want to say that makes them the same thing, that you can.
I don't have the same rhetorical strategy as
make
Christians.
them the same thing.
I don't think atheists do.
Well, what if nobody else uses that rhetorical strategy and what identifies a group is its rhetorical strategy?
That's not what identifies a group. What identifies Christians and what identifies atheists is whether or not they believe in a God.
If you're so good at logic, you should be able to entertain hypotheticals.
I'm confused.
That's just modality. That's not necessarily
logic. Right? Leo's an atheist. I'm a Christian. We both seem to understand logic reasonably well. What is the common rhetorical strategy we're using? And that's what I'm confused because Leo and I have differing worldviews.
For like the 4th time now, you both presuppose the legitimacy of "quote unquote" classical logic, which literally contradicts.
Everybody does. Every single.
Well, but wait, you said it.
Christian Empire.
No,
you said it contradicts Aristotelian logic, but Aristotelian logic fell out. What you literally just did, you said that we use classical logic, which contradicts Aristotelian logic, which is fine. Aristotelian logic hasn't been used. Aristotelian logic hasn't been used since at least the 3rd century.
Yeah, it was superseded by early pre-Islamic logic. Then, as Leo pointed out correctly, syllogisms, moralisms all came in with Islam. And then they were formalized by the West.
logic is being abused in support of political ambitions.
I don't know what it
Even though
means
we
to
only have
abuse
precedent
No,
logic.
that's not the
citing
point.
political
That's not our
Most
point. Your
points.
point was that atheists are actually a sect of Christians because they use the same rhetorical strategy.
Well, I don't know if
And
that's
nobody
what
else
she was
uses it.
saying, but maybe
Nobody
it
But then
else
does.
you
I
keep
uses
don't.
going off into some other thing about abusing logic for oppression, and so that's not what we're talking about.
You know, she might
That's what
have a
I'm saying.
little bit of a point now that I think of it. I've actually heard some atheists talk more about God than some religious folks.
That doesn't mean they think it's true.
I hear you. I'm just being cute. I thought that'd make you laugh.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be charged in the
Hey.
High Court for abusing, I don't know, existential generalization.
I will
Yeah,
always
I can-
go, first of all, for anyone
You're in
being
trouble,
cute
Ralph.
and any consensual abusing. What were we talking about?
Okay, so I need to ask you, not law of non-contradiction. Did this man touch you here or here?
And so I'm gonna bring it back because I have two questions each for the
Ooh.
Christians, and I want to know. Either of you can go in either order. That's what he or she said. But one of the
Hell yeah.
main points, I had a question in the debate, which was, what would it take to convince you that Christianity was irrational? And their answer, which I would also like you guys to comment on, was he said Jesus would have to have been shown not to have come back from the dead. And so my question to both of you is, what would it take to convince you that Jesus was not resurrected from the dead?
Who wants to go first? You
Ooh.
want to go, bro?
And I know the spice is real.
No, you want me to go first? Put me on the hot plate, huh?
Oh,
Go
yeah,
ahead, Brett.
baby. Either way, I'm sending love, Brett. If you'd like, the floor is all yours.
Well, I guess whenever it comes to if Jesus could be proven to have never existed, that would definitely unravel the entire Bible.
That would undercut the claim.
So that's the line drawn in the sand. I'm not one of these type of people who are just going to go, yeah, no matter what you say or do or whatever. If you've got an argument, I'm listening.
Well, and see, I would just want to ask or further
So spicy,
inquiry,
Karen.
because there's even debate on here, James and our friend Oz from Tang Gang, are mythicists where they don't believe he exists. But I could, the joke is, like my sexuality, I could go both ways. And so you could convince me that Jesus exists. And my big thing is about prophethood, is about miracles and what they did. So is it the only way that you could be shown that Jesus didn't come back from the dead is that he didn't exist at all? Or is there anything else besides that you could be convinced that, like, he existed, he just died like everyone else, I assume will?
Well, honestly, whenever it comes down to it, I've heard a great deal, every kind of emotional argument that can be used. God is mean. God does things that doesn't seem like it's nice or whatever. It goes along with what God said here. But I've never actually heard a really good scientific argument that would make God incompatible with reality.
Well, I can give an argument for that, but it's not going to be a scientific one.
That's just to say he's not falsifiable. And proving a negative is almost impossible.
But that just kind of sounds like a I'm right until you prove me wrong, which sounds kind of like an argument from ignorance.
Well, there's the naturalistic pantheism. You can't really argue quote against that because it's just saying, like, okay, God's the universe. I mean, it's just basically acknowledging the universe exists. So, but then there's a question as to whether that's actually theism.
Well,
traditionally, pantheism in philosophy is not considered a form of theism.
And as far
because
as
there's
I
no
can tell,
intentionality.
that is what most people think.
What was that, Shane?
Because there's no intentionality. Is that why?
As I understand it, it's because it's just God isn't understood in any classical sense in pantheism.
You mean Christian sense? Badoomts!
No, I mean the classical sense. Most Islamists or Muslims would also hold the classical theism, but they're not Christians.
Oh, okay, a sect of Catholicism. Cool.
No, that they're not Catholics, which are Christians either.
Right.
Classical theism just takes that the being which exists is singular and is maximally great. You don't have to associate that with Christianity to believe it.
You could potentially be Hindu and believe in classical theism.
Yes, I don't know any Hindus that do, but I mean, obviously, I get the point. That
Funny you should say that. I think Jen and I both know Master Duvid, who advocates for Hinduism and the Torah concurrently under the
He
multiple
doesn't
truths.
really advocate for Hinduism per se. That's a bit of a misrepresentation.
Not
said
many Hindus and
benefit in
Jews.
Well, there's
You can check out Master Duvid's channel. So.
And so I do want to read this super chat, and then Ralph, I'll hand it over to you. But Farron Salas, woohoo, $4.99. My vote for homecoming king and queen. Hashtag Leo and Jen. That's right, baby. Woohoo! Sending so much love, Farron. And hey, keeping it spicy.
Go get it, Leo.
And, all right. Thank you so very much. Sending that love right back to Farron and everyone in chat. Oh, I see you
Good night,
is
Jeff.
going to bed. We are only going to stay on for a little bit longer before we head into our outros, but we are having fun on Is Christianity Rational? And so I want to then keep it right once again. He who controls the spice.
All right, I'll give you another one.
The universe. That's right. Thank you, James. And all right, I gotta get them out of my system, or I get too spicy. But Ralph, we are talking about Christianity, and one of the answers given to me in that debate was, if you could prove to me that Jesus did not resurrect, that would be the done deal. I mean, I have my feeling about that I'll get into after I get both of our answers, but I really want to know personally. I mean, it does sound like a good make or break it, at least from the outset. I mean,
just really quickly, can I comment on this after you go, Amy?
Sure. So what's going to happen, we'll let Ralph have his say. I just want to have a commentary on it, and then I see Dessel backstage. So, woo-hoo.
Amy, would I be able to ask a question back on the same thing being thrown at me?
Sure.
Well, I don't mean thrown like harmful, just a little bit back and forth.
Does it have to pertain to the subject, or as like a bow? Because I'll let you wrap up, but then I want Ralph to give his.
It's kind of a return question. Basically, what would it take for your question was what would it take for the Christian to give it all up, and it's kind of the same back
The
to
same in the back. Okay,
but it's
on to that
it's a
question.
hypothetical question I'm wanting to ask. I'll make it super quick. I'm real fast.
Sure. Well, hold on to that question. We'll get
All
into
right.
it because I still want to, as I say, get the cards on the table. Ralph, do you have?
Well, I mean, this is interesting, isn't it? Because again, back to the theme I keep stressing, if atheism or let's say methodological naturalism has evidence and reason, and you give that primacy, and you keep asking me what evidence and what reason would either confirm or deny our faith, I'd like to take that argument to the extreme the other way. And suppose no one had ever borne witness to Moses, Muhammad, or Jesus. Would it change our faith? And the answer would be no. Because ultimately, we're not using evidence and reason as the primary tool of inquiry into our existence. So as much as you would try using evidence and reason, I would actually just hurry it up and take the contraposition and say, suppose no one ever bore witness to the three Abrahamic faiths. I don't believe it would change any of our faiths. So we're really barking up the wrong tree and expecting evidence and reason to ever produce anything that dents our faith.
I appreciate both of your answers. Can I tell you why both of them bother me? because
Yes, please.
and bother me only in the creationist or the view itself, not you
The
guys.
Aristotelian
But you went very quickly to mythicism, and I feel like I could grant it to you so easily. Like, it's not the existence, which I definitely think Moses didn't
That was
exist.
Brett, right?
I could
What are you
make
drinking,
that.
Shane?
Well, I think
That's a genuine question, isn't
I
it?
think
Because-
Ralph is actually saying the same thing in his position, is that it doesn't matter if the real he's saying, I would still believe it, or if we couldn't prove, maybe not.
But you know,
if
Amy, if you don't mind, you said that really well, because if you flip it, because I love physics, I'm a computer scientist, I love maths, physics, computing is my thing. It's always been in my life. It's like,
Sure.
it depends what your world model is. If your world model is a human mind that is reasoning about the world, measuring the world, testing novel hypotheses, then you'll have a worldview. My worldview is this entire universe is being exposed and revealed to us. And that revelation, to which we have science as one of the many tools to look at it, evidence and reason as sub-tools of them in some orientation, are just ways to get closer to something that you might call it mystical, metaphysical, supernatural. And that's actually that has primacy in my worldview.
Do you not? Can I?
I don't look at Planck's constant
I
as something
agree.
to understand 10 to the minus 34, or the Pauli exclusion principle, or Gödel's incompleteness theorem. I look at these as ways to understand the revelation. And that is an absolute worldview, right?
And people over there till they agree with you, right?
Say again, sorry?
And use them and abuse them to beat people over the head with until they agree with you, right?
I mean, this physical abuse of the transposition or contraposition law, or taking in torturing hypothetical syllogisms, doesn't make any sense to me. So when you use words like abuse, I'm not sure what you mean by abuse, but we will use as tools all things, all forms of logic, all terms of science and reasoning, to be able to
trick
understand.
people into agreeing with you, and you don't seem to understand why people might take issue with that. You're saying
Trick is like you've got a presupposition that there's a malignant intent.
May I say that
I reject your premise.
I searched for live open discussions, and I seen that Amy was running a great discussion about Christianity. Being that I'm a Christian, thought I'd join the topic. I'm sorry if I come off abusive or as though I'm hurting logic in some way. I will definitely apologize.
I'm sorry, I am totally not even talking about you. It's nothing to do with you at all. Please don't think that that's
They have some
directed at
history, Brett. You've
They've been officially in the ring of Debate Me Brah, the debate show that we run on this channel. And hey, sounds like we have to put them back into the ring. And I just
Amy, quick question, if I may.
Sure, I do want to just, you know what? Okay, continue.
No, absolutely. Go ahead. I will not forget this question.
Let the spice flow.
It just, when I hear it go into sort of this, I could grant you them being alive. To me, the claim. We're talking about rationality. In fact, you said revelation, specifically. What is rational about revelation? Because to me, not only is revelation an irrational form of deliverance, but like the fact that he would do it via holy text, and then the fact that to prove so, to me, I know once you accept the Christian claims, apparently they're looked at very normative, but like just the notion of killing a guy, and that guy is his son, but he is himself.
Amy, may I suggest you read some of Kierkegaard? And he came up with a quote that said, "One must crucify reason and leap into the absurd." What you have to do is you have to crucify reason, right?
Very badly.
You're holding on. You're holding on tightly to rationality and reason. But
hopefully, I will stay on.
You have your arms and legs wrapped around reason tightly.
Yeah, and so, Leo, you're going to have a final point. If you ask a question, that person will have the final point. But if it's just a statement, then you will, and I'm getting Dessel in because we only have 10 minutes left before outros.
So yeah, because I want to get him in here, so I want to make this point, but so I'll try to make it as quickly as I can. I think that the easiest way to sort of, I don't really want to use the word attack, that seems too strong of a word, but I guess I'll just use it for lack of a better word here, to sort of attack the idea of the resurrection is just to say that it's physically impossible. Some might consider that a rather strong claim. I think it's logically possible. Hell, I even think it's metaphysically possible. But physically or nomologically, I think it's impossible. I think it violates the two laws that I would say that it violates are the law of conservation of energy and the second law of thermodynamics. But there were two questions I wanted to ask, and that they're sort of off topic, but they don't lead down any. They're just some really quick questions I wanted to ask.
So I'm going to freeze you. I'm going to let you answer those questions, but I have to, for whoever they are, your answer has to be the 3-minute elevator pitch, if not quicker.
Well, I was going to ask questions.
Well, exactly. Oh, but see, when you ask questions, that implies that someone is going to answer them. So I'm telling
of course,
people,
Shane will answer.
Well, there you go. I'm just saying, whoever.
I'll answer.
Amy, do we not have enough time for me to be able to do my question?
Oh, that's right. So we will.
Shane, what are you drinking?
We do have time. We do have time.
Coke Zero.
But then we're going to move into the outros. We still have a little bit.
Amy, do you know how to contact Stuart?
Yes, I believe.
Do you think that he would be interested in a debate on the problem of evil?
Sure. So, in fact, this is my time to shill as a proud team member of Modern Day Debate. I'm sure if you ask James and Stuart and Cliff if they wanted to, they would hook that up. And I know that if it's 50-50, if you go on their channel, a lot of times you can find someone's personal email address. I know you can in ours. But I'm sure if you contacted James himself and just said I wanted to, he would hook that up.
Right on. And I'll do that, and then I'll include that you told me to contact him, because then I feel like he'll be more apt to.
Hey, we're sharing the love. We like cross-pollinating.
I was listening to the. Go ahead.
Oh no, James is our Christian brother, and is our Christian brother in the community of the larger debating community. So we just love James, and yeah. And all right, I'm going to get Dessel in, and then what's going to happen is after their opening statement, the last topic really on open discussion is going to be what Brett wants to talk about for his questioning. The atheist will be put in the hot seat for a second or two, and then everyone will have their final say on the subject because we'll all have our outros. But, all right. Dessel, what is up? That's all right. We are Midnight Ranting on Is Christianity Rational, along with a whole bunch of theological and rational back and forth. I hope you're doing well. What is your views on the debate, the topic, or anything we've been talking about tonight?
Thanks for letting me on. Basically, I just wanted to push back on the argument that Jen's been making about Christian logic. And there was another thing about Kierkegaard, but I can probably save that one. But my thing is just like taking a look at history and, this idea about like a Christian empire and how it's Christians that have used this as a tool exclusively to beat people over the head with. But if you take a look at the East, which you said, where like logic as a tool is not used, but that's not true. Like you take a look at the ancient Naya, and they were the first in ancient Indian philosophy to develop a formal logic. And then you go further to Buddhist philosophy, and you have the Buddhist philosopher Dignaga, who developed what they call Hetu Vidya, which is a formal logic, a deductive formal logic. So they use it over there too. It's just, they have their mysticisms, but they also have their their philosophy and their formal logic and everything like that, just like in the West, that, you have your Western mysticism. And then, like, taking a look at the history of the West, you have Aristotle comes along, he develops his logic before Christianity, and then when Christianity develops, there's a hostility toward Greek logic. Like, you have the famous phrase from Tertullian, the early church father, "What has Jerusalem to do with Athens?" And then the critiques of like pagan thinking that's contained in Paul and stuff like that, where, according to Paul, God makes foolish the wisdom of the world. And then as you go on, Aristotle they really like turned away from that, and it was the Moors and Islam that had to reintroduce Aristotelian thought back into the West. And then once that was reintroduced, Christians originally viewed that as a threat until Aquinas came along and harmonized it into Christianity. And then from there, you had the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, where it started to create trouble for Christians again. And so, I mean, like, I just don't think that historically that makes very much sense. And I agree with what Leo was saying in terms of his like whole Christians use toilets and curtains and things like that. Just because a person uses it doesn't mean that it's theirs. But I don't think that the history really bears out what Jen was saying on that. And I guess the last thing on Kierkegaard is that if you do read Kierkegaard, though, like he talks about making that jump into the absurd. But when you read his stuff, like if you read Fear and Trembling, he's really inconsistent when he talks about that. He applies it to his analysis of Abraham. But when he talks about Abraham, he's actually describing in the book from Abraham's perspective how everything he's doing is actually reasonable. That was like my main beef with Kierkegaard after I read the book, because I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. But when you read it, the way that he's using these ideas of irrationality and absurdity and leaps of faith doesn't really correspond to how most people talk about that today. Because when you analyze his central character, Abraham, the person that he's analyzing, what Abraham does, given Kierkegaard's analysis, actually makes perfectly reasonable sense. And so those were just my thoughts.
Great thoughts, wonderful stuff. I missed your name, whoever you are, but nice to hear from you. But absolutely, it's almost like there's a deep within Kierkegaard. There's a deep sense of mocking things like consistency.
Am I going to be able to respond to any of this incredibly long nonsense? What appears to be a support for my position, but actually allegedly isn't? Like, you went into all these ancient logic systems. What is that supposed to establish?
That it's inappropriate to say Christian logic, or that logic belongs to this Christian empire and things like that. You're basically trying to say that Christians are I'm sorry, let me just get this last bit out and then I'll listen to your response. Is that you're describing it as part of the Christian empire, and that Christians use logic as a tool to beat people over the head with. They abuse logic and beat people over the head with it. But again, I mean, like, all sorts of different cultures have developed formal logics and have used logics. And just as logic is used in the West, it's also used in the East and has been formalized.
You're saying that the East also abuses logic to beat people into conformity because Christians do it?
I think
I'm
we
saying
found
that.
who's abusing
You love
logic
it, Ralph.
here.
You love it.
The question is there a dependent arising between the three laws of thought and Christianity? And the answer is no one else uses it but them.
Well, that's not true.
Except for the atheist philosophers that use it.
Except for atheists,
Yeah, so I mean, like, again,
Muslims.
My tradition doesn't
Buddhist,
believe in atheism. I'm sorry. But
so yeah, I mean, like, when Leo pointed out that Aristotle precedes Christianity, I mean, that's an example of Greeks prior to Christians using logic, and then you have all of the Eastern. You have all of the Eastern people, all of the Eastern cultures using logic as well. And so when you're saying that it's only
using the same thing, they're not using logic. Buddhist logic and Aristotelian logic, those are incompatible concepts.
So they might not be the exact. I'm sorry, they might not be the exact same formal system, but they are formal logics. So
the law of excluded middle.
I'm just saying that
something is either true or not true. But in Buddhist logic, something can be true and not true. Those two concepts aren't compatible.
Yeah,
that depends. That entirely. I'm sorry. That entirely depends on what Buddhist school you're talking about. And so,
I don't think you're an expert on Buddhism, are you?
apparently I know more about Buddhism
You
than you
don't know
because
what
you're
I'm an
acting as if
expert
they
on,
don't
so I would
use it
keep
on
your
the
dumb
East.
opinions to
Well,
yourself,
obviously
my
you don't know
expertise
squat
is
shit
concerned.
about the topic because you're talking about it as if Christians have a monopoly on logic and abuse logic and everything like that, but that's total bullshit, both when it comes to Western history and Eastern history. So if you knew squat shit about Buddhist philosophy, you wouldn't have come on here and spit that garbage in the first place.
Yeah, I confirm that Christians
I think
don't
you
claim we own
understood what
logic
I
of any
said
of these
based on your
forms.
response.
Leo, you're
but
muted.
Okay.
I'm citing the
You know,
Christians' own
Ralph,
logic.
why aren't you backing me up here? Ralph, you told the truth one time about Hinduism. Why can't you tell the truth here and say, yes,
Back her up, Ralph.
Aristotle, that stuff, that's Christian?
Because I disagree that, first of all, logic is owned by any group or any collective.
I'm not
label
saying
for
logic
group.
is owned by a group. I'm saying Aristotelian approach to logic is a uniquely Christian thing.
Not
which is
Christian,
not.
not small. No, just actually, because first of all, I look at logic. I'm a computer scientist, theoretical computer. I look at it backwards and reverse. We have formalized all
Modern
logic.
computers are largely a Christian creation, Ralph. You are pro this
allow me
worldview,
to
like
try and answer
Western,
it then.
whatever it is.
Allow me
This
to
is
try and answer
literally your
Jen, because
worldview, Ralph.
I'd like to try and answer Jen. So what I'm saying, if I work backwards from the formalism of a Turing machine of all logics of all types of logics, including
Does anybody
logics,
here know MacBooks?
and if I go backwards and I go, look, Aristotelian logic predated all the work of logic done by the Muslims and the Christians and
Take that
other
as a
parts of the
no.
world.
I do.
And those logics are not abused by it. When you say we abuse the logic, do you mean, Jen, maybe I'm trying to help, but do you mean that Christians have used logic to say, for example, to justify the Trinity or to justify our metaphysical claims? Absolutely. I wouldn't call it abusing logic. I would be conversing in logic.
Is there any way we can spend this discussion for like 30 seconds? I have an issue and I need help getting it resolved.
Incoherent. Why do you want to go into claims about the Trinity?
Amy, you said that you might know something about MacBooks?
Sure. So
so I was trying to hit the shortcut to unmute myself on StreamYard, Command D, and I hit something else, and the app bar at the bottom disappeared, and then if I put my mouse down there, it reappears. Yes. How do I get that to stop doing it? How do I get it to just permanently be there?
There is a way to lock.
I can see. Hold on, Jesus Christ.
You may have to Google the exact way to get it into settings, but
you're such a boomer, Leo.
Well, no, it's not a boomer issue. I've hit everything, every letter around the D, and nothing has undone it.
Are you able to write?
Yeah, well, unlike Windows, where it just has
MacBooks are shit.
At the bottom, it goes away when you hover away from it.
Yeah, and I want it to be there permanently because like it was before. I hit Command D and I hit I don't know if I hit the F or something.
Leo, the problem you're facing is MacBooks are user friendly. That's the problem. You should get rid of them.
Well, actually, MacBooks are way more user friendly than PC is. Like just 100%. Mac is way more user friendly. It's that MacBooks are absolute shit. Get a desktop if you're gonna get a Mac. That's just what it is.
Install Linux. Get rid of it all.
I don't like Linux.
If I had a point that I kind of wanted to address real quick about this topic.
And because it's a point and not a question, I actually think that's fantastic. Because when you're done your point, we'll move into Brett's question.
Okay. So, Jen, what you're saying is that Aristotle, the three laws of logic, using that is a uniquely Christian thing. And then we pointed out that there are other groups that aren't Christian, such as atheists, that use that too. And your response was, well, then they must be Christians, actually. They're not really atheists. They're actually Christians because they're using
I could argue.
So that seems circular.
I could argue the atheists are still Christians to the extent that they use that rhetoric.
And that's my point, is that it's circular because you're saying logic
based
is uniquely
on historical evidence, though.
So what I'm saying,
you have no historical evidence.
Hold on a second. What I'm saying,
you have no counter evidence to my claim, which is why it's intimidating.
I just gave you a ton.
So what I'm saying is, you are claiming that this type of logic, using it, is a uniquely Christian thing, and we are saying that there are other groups, such as atheists, that use that type of logic. And your response is, well, then atheists must actually be Christians because this logic is a Christian thing.
I don't
So
think
And we
atheists are
Jen,
intentionally.
actually,
I don't think they're
I'm gonna.
secret Christians, but they exist in a Christian culture.
well,
Sorry,
that's
Amy, go ahead.
Oh no! I
well,
just
no,
wanted to
those are
say,
totally different
'cause-
claims. Saying they exist in a Christian culture is totally different than saying they are actually a sect of Christianity or they are Christians. Because that
because
is
And
why, because the
it would have
criteria for being a Christian is, or being an atheist, is whether or not you believe in the Christian God.
and
And
so
atheists don't, and Christians do. Like,
I
and it would have to apply
regardless of
to.
which logic they use to conclude
and then I just want
that.
to
Sorry,
let.
Amy.
Oh no! I with that out,
You
I
want to let
just
Brett?
want Jen to make your final thing because I want you. The 30 seconds minute is yours, Jen, just to give a final defense of it, and then if anyone would actually like to, once again, the outros are all yours. Say whatever you want on the topic of the debate, this Christianity, or really just logic, reason itself. But Jen, your final thought on that.
Thank you for thank you for the opportunity to give a final thought. I will just hope people give a consideration to the idea that we wouldn't have computers as we have them today without Boolean logic. We wouldn't have Boolean logic without the laws of thought, and we wouldn't really have as much emphasis on laws of thought without Christianity, which didn't just use laws of thought, but also Platonism shifted to Neoplatonism to really justify itself and entrench itself on a spiritual level.
And all right, I know that everyone may want to have comments, but thank you so very much, Jen. Brett,
Thank you, Jen.
We have been having fun. We have been Midnight Ranting on Is Christianity Rational? I think these are going to be the last few questions of the night, but if you wouldn't mind asking them for the audience again.
All right. In order to wrap up the question, I need to remind everybody that about 20 minutes ago, before all this other stuff started, the question was asked, what would it take for Christians to leave? So I'm going to throw it back with this. If you were presented with two doors, and one said universe with God, and we'll go ahead and place Jesus on it, or another door that says universe without a God, period. And the moment you step through that door, that becomes your reality. The door disappears behind you. No faith is required, though. You will know for a fact that the universe with Jesus is the Jesus universe, and the other one without God, obviously, would be the non-God. Which one would you go through if you knew for a fact what you would get?
I know what my answer is, so I'll just start off by, if I had only those two doors, it would be easy to pick the non-God option for me, because I think that there's actually, to use a metric, I think many theists can appreciate, I think it's more pure. I think it's cleaner. Once you get into, and this is, once again, this is just opinion, because just what I want, whether what is true, I don't find any of the gods very moral. And actually, funny that you, while we're on the subject, I think one of the more rational positions, and I actually learned this, I think, from talking to James about you, Brett, is Maltheism. I think if you were to tell me that, look, I believe God is real, but man, is he a giant dick. I honestly, I respect that position way more, because I feel like you're telling me I'm driven to this, but I'm not on his team. I'm not going to worship and kiss the ring and blah, 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 blah. Because to me, if I found out the Christian God was real, I would be Team Satan. Like, it would be a really easy decision. It would make me a theist. I would believe in a God. And so, from what I have been presented, to get back to the original question, it's just easier for me, if I had the choice. Not only do I not believe a God exists, but if I was given the option, I would still want there to be no. I would accept if evidence swings me in the other direction. I would accept that, because I think that is the mature decision to make. and I'm interested what anyone else has to think about it.
Can I share some thoughts on that?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So I guess there's two ways I could understand Brett's question is, would you pick a world in which God, specifically the God of Christianity, existed? Or would you pick a world in which no God, or at least the God of Christianity, didn't exist? With respect to that question, I don't know if I really have an answer to that question, just because there's technicalities that I would need to know before I could answer it. The other way I could interpret his question is sort of the, well, what would it take for you, a Christian, to stop being a Christian? The second way I can interpret it is for him to be returning that back onto the atheist. Well, what would it take you, the atheist, to stop being an atheist? And with respect to that interpretation of the question, I would just say I'm going to need to see reasonable objections to somebody who can overcome arguments which can overcome the problem of evil, as well as the argument from failure, if we're talking about specifically classical Christian theism.
Well, Leo, this takes faith off of the table. You will know for a fact the moment you step through the God door that, yeah, it's going to be Jesus. That universe is ran by it, or you pick the one without God.
Well, yeah, but with respect to the world where Christianity is true, I take there being conceptual issues with Christianity being true. So I'm not really understanding.
I don't have a preference either way. All of my problems with Christianity or any kind of theism stem from the fact that I don't think that they're true. If I came to believe that they were true, I wouldn't have a problem with them. But I think that they lead to really bad things because they're not true. And so that's my beef. But again, if they were true, I would just be a believer. I don't have any like implicit emotional preference for either one. My emotional baggage comes from my feeling that they're actually false.
James, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Never mind, it's fixed.
Dun dun dun. Yeah, sometimes I get summoned by Satan. And
you want to know if I was here or not?
Hey, look, Amy, all I want to say is Satan only calls down the baddest of the bitches, all right? So that's saying a lot.
He often does.
Why, thank you so very much. And all right, guys, I
would say to that question,
absolutely, James, all yours.
Chime in that in terms of the Christian God, I mean, there's two different ways you can look at it. So on one hand, you have, out of pure selfishness, would I kind of like the idea that maybe you get to live forever, be happy, and see all your friends and family after you die? From a purely selfish standpoint, that does sound nice. I mean, the other side of that coin is that there's other people who don't get that, who have to either be annihilated in some, fire, or if you take the more traditional view, go and be tortured and burned forever. But I'm kind of glad that's not true. But yeah, I could go. It's a tough decision for me, but I mean, it's all hypothetical.
I just wanted to say one really quick thing, not even related to the topic. I didn't know Shane had a whole ass sleeve. I didn't.
Woo-hoo!
I did not.
Hells yeah.
That's badass.
Well, and I will have to say, with that, we are going to move into our outros.
Move in.
And I'll tell you what, actually, Ralph, you can be the first to start us off.
Before we get there, I'm just going to take off just because it's 2:30 in the morning here.
So, would you like to be first then? Oh, hold on.
Anything you want to say before you go?
We got it. We have an outro order now. It's going to be Leo, Ralph, and then the lovely opposite out of order entrance. Okay. We are moving into outros. We have been Midnight Ranting on Is Christianity Rational? I hope you all had a fun time, and if you would like to continue the discussion, we'll be moving into the after show on Discord, but we are rolling into our outros. That's fine. You could go because I have already done my job, which is to shill at youtube.com/Leophilius.
Huh? What? No, I was just wondering. Anyway, yeah, Amy is the reason that I want to move to Ireland, because if I lived in Ireland, it'd only be 8:32 in the morning right now, not 2:32 in the morning. So I'd be just getting up. Anyway, yeah, this has been an awesome time. Other than the logic discussion, I'm not going to name any names, but I think there's some people in here that should probably like read up a little bit more on like logic and like philosophy of logic. Yeah, I think Christianity, believing in Christianity is rational. I think Christianity is false, but I think that you can believe in something that's false and be rational in believing it. Because again, I take rationality to simply mean that you adhere to the rules of inference, and you engage in things that you have most reason to engage in. So if one has most reason to believe in Christianity and they believe in Christianity, then they're acting in accord with their reason, and I take that to be rationality. So I think that numerous positions that I personally would disagree with are rational positions to hold. I don't really think the discussion turns on much by granting that either atheism or Christianity are rational. I think that that's sort of something that can just be granted. I think more of the meat of the discussion lies in which position seems to be more likely to be true. And I think there's at least two arguments that, well, with respect to specifically classical Christian theism, show that there's got some serious conceptual issues to overcome. And those would be the logical argument from evil and the argument from failure.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you so very much, Leo. And all right.
Malakalikimaka.
And don't forget to check him out on Modern Day Debate and our very own Debate Me Bra. And all right. Dessel, what is up? We have been Midnight Ranting on Is Christianity Rational? Thank you for jumping aboard. Where can people find you? And of course, what are your final thoughts about the debate, the topic, or anything we've been talking about tonight?
Thanks for having me on.
Jesus fucking Christ.
What's that?
Oh, no, shit. I'm sorry. I thought I was muted. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thanks for having me
By
on.
that way, that wasn't to you. Something was going on again with my laptop.
That's cool.
Just to clarify, it
That's
wasn't
cool,
you.
No problem. Yeah, no problem. One more time, thank you for having me on. I don't think Christianity is rational. I don't think that there are any arguments that can rationally justify it. There are many historical arguments that try to. I think they fail. And just to reiterate the points from before, I don't think that it can be said from a historical standpoint that Christianity has any hold on logic whatsoever. Logic precedes it in the West and was developed independently in the East and is used in the East. And so I think that this is a narrative that just isn't based in history. And that's really all I guess I have to say. So thanks for having me. And in terms of where you can find me, you can't. I don't really do too much on YouTube. I just come in from time to time and give my worthless 2 cents. So thanks for having me.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen, an Amy Newman exclusive. Thank you so very much, Dessel. And all right, we are moving right down. Ralph, what is up? Thank you so very much for joining us tonight on our Midnight Ranting. Is Christianity rational? What do you have going on? But really, what are your thoughts about the topic, the debate, or anything we have been talking about tonight?
Thanks ever so much for having me on, Amy. And I think I find myself in the awkward and uncomfortable position of agreeing with both the previous atheists that, of course, Christianity can be rational or irrational, as atheism can be rational or irrational. But let's note it's 2022 years, and tomorrow we will celebrate the resurrection of the Lord Jesus Christ. And in 3033 and 4044, we will do the same thing again. And I think reason is just one of those tiny little tools that God has given us to understand the universe. Christianity is the only true understanding of the universe, and all truth is embedded within the Logos. And that's all I have to say. So sending lots of love out to the merry skeptics, and better luck next time. And I hope you have a wonderful, blessed Easter.
Thank you so very much, Ralph. And great to see you. And I agree with your
Looks like a druid.
Your earlier commentary. It's always a lot of fun popcorn. All right, we are moving right down. Shane, what is up? Shane Billowitz. We have been Midnight Ranting on Is Christianity Rational, along with a whole back of theological back and forth. Hope you had a good time. Where can people find you? And of course, what are your final thoughts?
Well, thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun. This was a great discussion. So I never actually got to answer the door thing real quick. If it was the God of Christianity or no God, I would choose no God. And the one point I wanted to make was that this was supposed to be the question that we asked flipped back at us, but this wasn't really the question that we asked, at least as far as I was understanding it. I thought the question was, what would convince you that Christianity is false, not what would make you choose which one is true or not, or which one would you rather have. But anyway, so Christianity, is it rational? I think it can be rational. Kind of like what Leo was saying, is that you can use, logic, best inference, induction, that sort of thing, to come to the conclusion that Christianity exists. I don't think that there are any deductive arguments with sound premises that conclude that Christianity is true. I guess if I did, I would be a Christian. But I think there are rational reasons to believe in Christianity. I think reason and evidence are the best way to determine what's actually true. Other people tonight on the stream have talked about different ways of coming to know things are true, like believing Christianity through faith, not through evidence and not through reason. The thing is that I see is that reason and evidence is the best way to come to a conclusion that something is true. It's the most reliable way, and that using faith can come to opposite conclusions, can come to wrong conclusions. It doesn't seem to be a reliable way, or as reliable as using, science and evidence and reason. And the problem I see with, especially with people that are sort of apologists, or it was said earlier that logic and reason are tools that Christians can use to persuade people to believe that, or come to the realization that Christianity is true. But the problem is, logic and reason aren't what convinced you that is true. It was the faith. So if you believe with the faith, then why are you using logic and reason as if that was going to convince somebody else, when that's not what convinced you? So where you can find me, just on YouTube or TikTok. Oh, there's my link. Yeah, I have a tiny URL since I don't have 100 subscribers. I've got a new video coming out.
If you are a non-believer, in fact, if you're a believer and you are just part of Team Skeptic, you should be heading over to Shane Billowitz so that we can get him his 100. We need to get him that fancy title, yo. And so, we'll speak for just a minute, Shane. What is the theme of your channel? What will they find there?
So right now I'm kind of getting to the basics of, like, when people are first kind of deconstructing, or maybe they're questioning, or maybe they've been an atheist for a while but they haven't really been involved in these conversations. They just don't believe. It's sort of starting it's like, and now what? Like, what do you do? What just as some resources to help people with its foundations of skepticism or logic or trying to find communities, that sort of thing. I mean, I've only got like 3 or 4 videos right now, but at least that's my plan of what it's gonna be.
Hells yeah. And hey, you got to start somewhere. 3 or 4 videos is more than most people just say they want to do, they want a podcast, they want to do this, and it's the same rule with being a comedian. There's only one rule to being a comedian, and that is you need to go on stage, because people could say you're a bad comedian, a good comedian. As long as you're doing it, that's all that matters. And all right, let's get Shade once again to his 100th. The link is on screen. Shane, thank you so very much for being here.
Yeah, thank
you. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
And all right, Jen, what is up? We have been Midnight Ranting on Is Christianity Rational, along with a whole bunch of theological and logical back and forth. Hope you had fun. Where can people find you? And of course, what are your final thoughts?
Thanks for having me, Amy. It was a good time. I really enjoyed the combo. Everyone else participating, James also, and the audience. I won't go into too much of a thanks, man. I won't go into too much of a rant here. I just wanted to maybe
by all means,
rant away.
Just want to open the door to a more nuanced conversation about analysis, because if we're going to build quantum computers, then that is going to require understanding how to build them and calibrate them and all the other fun stuff. So we're going to need to push past the Christian, Aristotelian laws of logic at some stage, because those, although awesome and built computers, and I effing love computers, I am not saying we should get rid of computers. I'm just saying, why not make even better ones quantum mechanically? And that's my pitch. So looking forward to the next one. Thanks again.
Woohoo! Thank you so very much, Jen. And I would be remiss if
4D or 3D periodic table.
Did not throw her channel up there, so please go check out the wonderful Church of Entropy, Jen, and sending so very much love. Thank you for coming on. Woohoo! And all right, we're just a few more, and then we're going to head to the after show on Discord. But Brett Keene, welcome. It is lovely to have you with us. We have been Midnight Ranting on Is Christianity Rational, along with some whole theological and rational and logical back and forth. Hope you had a fun time. Where can people find you, and what are your final thoughts?
Well, I'm Brett Keene, Keane. I'm over at God TV Radio. I too also do shows, and I put out my public link for non-believers, people of all different faiths, to come in, and we try to have good open discussions. I have subscribed to you, so if I see that you have open discussions, I'll jump right into that for sure. I'm also going to look at your after show, see what that's about. I'm actually got the Discord page open. My final thoughts would be this. In my question, I gave the option for all non-believers to go into a universe that has irrefutable evidence that God exists. And although everyone knew that if they stepped through that door, that's where God would be, they rejected it. So who is the rational position here? The universe that ends and dies with no protection or love, or the one where humanity's preserved? The rationality seems to stick out.
Woo-hoo, thank you so very much, Brett. And yes, keep on coming on to more streams. And we also have Brett's YouTube channel up there. So all of you non-believers out there, come on to his show. And once again, I'll even do the laundry. Thank you so very much, Brett, for having an open discussion with us.
No problem, Amy. It was enjoyable. You're pretty awesome.
Oh, thank you so very much. I thought it was you
night,
were a
Brett.
very honest interlocutor to talk to. So thank you for coming on.
Are you going to be coming over to Discord as well?
Yes, I will. I mostly listen unless the conversation gets. Once it gets into consciousness or certain things, then I tend to
Perks her
budget. Yeah, that
fancy.
gets my thing. But I'll definitely be on there for a little while, and then I know that it tends to have a lot of fun.
Is there a specific room I'm supposed to go in? I haven't used Discord in a long time.
Yes, it is the general VC, the general voice chat.
Works
which
for
I'm
me. As you can see, I have a hard time seeing things because I wear shades in the nighttime with a mist going by. So, thank you. I appreciate it.
Not at all. I would have to be as my
Big
millennial
shades.
butt. The moment I first went on to Discord, it made me feel much older. But I have to send love to both Titan Uranus and Math Pig out there, our lovely admins of Discord who really set everything up for us. But yeah, thank you so very much, Brett, and keep coming on. And all right, we are going to hand it to the co-pilot, James W.
Oh boy.
I know it's been when you're having so much fun, it just goes by so fast. We have been talking, is Christianity rational? I feel like this is one of our bread and butters. We can't help ourselves. We had to put Jesus into the hot seat. It's lovely to see the producer in your lap, but I do have to ask, what are your final thoughts?
Well, thanks everybody for sticking around for this epic after show. It was a lot of good discussion, a little bit of spice, but it was really fun. Thanks everybody for coming on, and we'll see you next week. We've got debate coming up next week. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Gizmo's here. Thank you, Robert. Yeah, I got a debate next month with Ken Hovind. That'll be on May 20th. Amy's getting hers set up for sometime in June. That'll be epic and exciting. I'm sure she will give Kent a run for his money. But yeah, he's got to be Gizmo merch coming. We'll put it Gizmo on a shirt.
I do know that there's going to be a round of cat emojis. So I think the first set of emojis, there's going to be 5 of them, is going to be 2 James, 2 myself, and then 1 of us. But then there's going to be another round of kits. That's going to be, producer Gizmo, and then I think a Princess Kitty and a Prince Kitty. But then we're going to also have Atheist and Theist All-Stars. So may have to vote, but we're going to get your favorite Atheist and Theist into emoji form.
But thanks, guys, for coming and chat with us. Thanks, everybody who sent in super chats. We appreciate it. It definitely helps keep us going. And,
it does.
Have a great night, guys.
Have a fantastic night to all of you in chat. I see Unit 66 saying he's an anti-theist. We actually consider ourselves anti-theist, not because we dislike theists. I hope they feel very despicable in our house. Yes, we just dislike theism.
Not theists.
But I actually want to reach out to James on Modern Day Debate. I would love to do more anti-theist debates. And then once again, if you're a religious person that drinks and has a beer, I'll have a beer with you afterwards. Because really, we can have differences of opinion. I do want to have one comment, and I'll let Brett, hopefully to be continued, because I want him to come back on. I thought it was a good conversation. I thought, like I said, he thought he was being an honest interlocutor. I don't know if I understood the question correctly, though, because it seemed at the end because I feel I want to make sure I accurately, satisfactorily answer people's questions. And it seemed like it was more in if you got direct evidence that God exists, you walk through a door and you knew, would you accept it or would you know? And then my answer would be yes, I would want to. If we walk through that universe and I just knew and we all had it,
what would you
all
want?
got it. Yeah, I thought it was a little bit different. So I feel.
Oh, well, guys, I think we lost Amy there, but I'm sure it was probably just a browser crash. Here she comes right back.
Damn.
So welcome back, Amy.
I need to worship.
Was he mad?
Because, you know, Saturn's 50
Was he mad?
Softer. Yeah, Satan was a little mad. I need to go back to selling my timeshares in hell. But no, so I just wanted to say...
he wasn't happy with those babies you sacrificed earlier before the show.
We do have to sacrifice, but we either need to eat them or throw them into a volcano. I think that is how you become a inner circle atheist. I swear, I feel bad. Like, we've had Canadian Catholic on here, and I think I showed this to him because I was so excited, and I swear he must have just had a surreal moment where he's like, why did I say that? Why did I say that? This hoe has got me on a pillow now. But we love everybody.
You waited years for that. You waited years. You told him to show him that.
It is a little bit. You want, but no. I mean, we love all of our atheists and theists.
We all put our foot in our mouth once in a while, but once in a while it comes on.
And the stream that he came on, he was very mild. I've seen him be very spicy. He was very cordial.
He was very mild.
We're sending love out there. Ooh, Rejos is saying more debates like that make me draw MDD more often. Otherwise, debate subjects piqued my interest for a while. Woo-hoo. Yeah, I will say that we want to have moving forward as a channel. We've been thinking about the different types of content. We do have a bunch of new shows that we're moving forward with, like our Q&A and More Talk Skeptic to Me. But we also, there's been such an outcry for, and there's been such good ratings, good reviews of the debates. So we have liked Debate Me Brah. I think it's been fun. And so we have a sign-up sheet that I keep on saying, but it's happening this week. It's going into the Discord list. You can join in Discord where atheist and theist are going to be able to join so that we could just pair you up and at our leisure. I've heard Canadian Catholic is a very bad boy. Oh my! When they come onto this channel, they're always good. Satan wants his pineapple. That scene with Godwin's Law, I think, has always been just a staple with Adam Sandler. At least in Awake Now, I suppose.
You caught somebody's attention, Jen.
Woo-hoo! We love Jen. Look. We love any basically theist that is on Team Science. That's really all we care about, because that's the only war that is at hand. Is there are people that attack the scientific education system and people who don't. And so if we're arguing about God, that's a discussion, that's a debate. We can go back to drinking beer, just like we were talking about earlier. But okay, I'm trying to think. I'm just sending so much love out there. James already said debates are upcoming. We are going to be starting to premiering more stuff, the greatest hits of our calls and our intros and things. Sunday, Monday. We'll somewhere. Lots of fun. Tang. Oh, yeah. Speaking of Tang, upcoming on the Sunday.
Thought it was Sunday.
Think it is. We're going to Jazz Hands. I'm not typing. What do you mean? In fact, I'm gonna show it up on the screen. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be fun in the sun
There's that turtle, folks. That's Newman. Focus.
Focus. Oh, I'm like, there we go. There we go. I'm like, why isn't it going to sharing screen? You have to click share screen. That does help. But behind the curtain, Tang Gang going to be hosting, but going to be looking for viewers and callers like you to come join us. Woohoo! Ian Davenport already sending his love, and we are sending love to Oz, Jenna, Shane the Skeptic, all of the Tang Gang out there. Come join us with hashtag also PSF. It's like a whole triple collaboration. And all right, with that, I want to thank you. I want to thank you all. I want to thank Gilbert Godfrey. But I want to send love. It is, we're lucky that he signed a billion-year contract from hell, his new busy schedule, to work with us and to continue being on our Skeptic Bible study, which he said he's allowed to because it's actually more painful. So Satan's allowing him.
Oh,
exactly. No. Sending love to Norm Macdonald, Saget, and Gottfried. Oh my God, that means I need to get my butt. I know, all back on hell. I need to get my butt back on the open mic, just in honor. But sending love. I hope you all had a fantastic time on this episode of Midnight Ranting. Is Christianity rational? Where tonight we were having a modern day debate inspired after party, woo, on is Christianity rational? And I hope you enjoyed us putting Jesus in the hot seat. However, I do want to thank my co-host, James W., along with our guests, Beamsy, Eloy, Ralph, Brett, Leophilius, Jen, Shane, and Dessel, woohoo, as well as the people in chat, our awesome mods who make this stream so great, and lovely viewers like you who make this channel even possible. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe, because then you'll gain access to that bell icon, which when set to all will send you reminders to see our premieres or join our live streams, or leave a comment once the video's done. After the show, that's right, you gotta water your sunflower. After the show, we will tonight. I'm so that's funny. And then we did see him in the debate, sending love to Sunflower. All of our theist brothers and sisters out there. But after the show, we will be heading over to the Skeptic and Ranting Discord server, the link of which is in the description below. Lastly, if you would like to help us make even more fun content, we offer some perks for our supporters by checking out our Patreon at patreon.com/Amy Newman. I am Amy Newman, and we will see you all on the next episode of Skeptic Ball Z. Good night, everyone. Woohoo! Sending love, Senator.
That's right, Doorknob.
Head, and everyone. Mwah.